What's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. I am your host, robnoerr. Sorry I'm a little late here today. I was having fun with my son and with my wife. Uh, Trying to work out some technological things as well, so bear with me here at the beginning of the stream. But the sound quality should be much, much better than last night, where I had to speak through my headset here. I think I have a backup mic that I'll be able to use. This guy, little cheapo guy, it should sound better. I'm gonna test it out tomorrow, but I do apologize. So, if you missed me, you missed the '40s broadcaster mic. Yeah, I listened to a little bit of the replay. It definitely sounded pretty rough. What can you do though? But I don't need the headset on for now. But yeah, hopefully this guy works out. I never used it. I bought it as a backup, but we'll see. So if you missed it last night, I did a review, pseudo live review of the Fetterman Oz Debate here in Pennsylvania. The reason I did that is I like doing debate reviews. I need to do more of them. I was a pretty good policy debater and judge in college. I enjoy debate. I think it puts me in a decent position to sort of look at debates and talk about them. Was I wrestling with my dog? I was wrestling with my dog. She's very itchy. So right before I came up, I left her outside and then she jumped on me. She goes into her bed at night and she jumped on me and I was giving her scritches. So you got some. She's old. She's 13. It's this time of year. She always gets itchy skin this time of year. It must be with her breed, the coat changing or something like that. Yeah, especially in winter, right? Yeah. But yeah, disheveled appearance, par for the course for me. A face for radio. Yeah, that's cool. I love older dogs. My other dogs, there's almost 9-10 years apart. I think 13 and 3 is their ages. But they're cool dogs. They're little stinkers, but anyways, so yeah, I looked at the debate last night. Also, I'm from Pennsylvania, so I'm very interested in the two big races in Pennsylvania, the Senate race between Oz and Fetterman, and then the gubernatorial race between Mastriano and Josh Shapiro. So, also, yeah, if anyone could, if I have a mod on YouTube, please let me know. I've been getting botted a lot, so sucks, but oh well, can't be a conservative and be a streamer, right? This type of stuff, it happens. I'm sure lefties get botted too. Give me a second here. All right, Maurice took care of it. Good. I don't have to. Thank you, Maurice. I appreciate it. PA accents are usually thick. Wait, Yins guys think that it's a little slippy outside, getting a little slippy, You'll see. Yins will see when the election comes around. I'm a Yinzer-ish. The bots are faithful Democrat voters. The dead and the bots and the comatose all voting Democrat. Did I see Mr. Girl on Sitch and Adam? Nah, I didn't. What am I spurging about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about some reactions to the debate last night. Hopefully better sound quality, so it'll be all right. No, supposedly I'm going to be on Sitch and Adam's show. Adam reached out to me and said I'll be on the show at some point. But, for all the hubbub about Mr. Girl, I've seen 2 minutes of him ever talking. I wasn't impressed. I get that he's kind of trolling with, a lot of the, I'm being raucous when talking about, sexuality and stuff like that. Whatever. Not my cup of tea, but he seems like, Mr. Girl seems like one of these people that is trying to be too philosophical for their own good. And it becomes like a conversation where people are talking like they think they're smarter than they actually are. Yeah. And I saw a little clip of him interacting with, I think it was his girlfriend, and I just thought it looked creepy. Whatever. But hey, teach their own. As long as the guy's not breaking the law or whatever, I don't want to see him censored. I'm sure there's far worse people now. I mean, for God's sakes, Bosch was advocating shooting Trump supporters out of windows, so I didn't hear anything that bad from Mr. Girl. So, but it's just one of those things. yeah, I find that sometimes there's the person of the day, or the drama of the day. And I don't know. I'm not saying I've never been involved in drama. I think my involvement in the drama is different, though. Usually it's only when I'm directly talking to someone, like on a panel with them, and then maybe I'll explain myself the next day. And it's usually like, it doesn't have to do with like people's life, like you cheated on your girl or you groped this person. The only thing I can think of that was remotely even in that sort of drama was when Hunter Avalon kept saying I was a product of like incest, because I was stupid, because I didn't want to teach sexuality to children. And I just said, I was on a panel and I brought up the situation where this guy was unfortunately taking photos of screenshots of BX Bullet's child without a lot of clothes on. And that person was going on Hunter Avalon's show. I brought that up. That's the only drama I could really think that I was, but that was sort of germane to the conversation we were talking about, I thought. Anyways, not really worth talking about. So, Fetterman Oz Debate. Let's talk about this. So, I analyzed the debate last night. I'm not going to reanalyze it. I'll give a brief update on it. If I had to give overall grades, I'd give Dr. Oz a B- to a B. I would give Fetterman an F to F-. I'll probably have to give Fetterman an F- because I think it is the worst debate performance I have ever seen. And I've seen a lot of bad debate performances. Certainly the worst for a national political race. It was really bad. It was bad because of his health issues, because he could barely talk. Perceptually, he looked horrible. He even did things to take away from the small benefit that he have. Like, he looked like maybe he could be a sympathetic figure, but then at the end of the debate during closing arguments, he's like shouting and interrupting, which kind of takes away that sympathetic figure. He is just not answering questions remotely satisfying. So yeah, it was bad. It was the worst. Like I said, it was the worst debate performance I've seen. Now, to me, that's important because you have to understand what these debates are for. The debate's not necessarily for me. It's for me in the sense that I enjoy debates. I think I am carefully looking at this race. But unless Dr. Oz says something apocalyptic, like, I can't even imagine what he would say to get me to vote for Fetterman in a debate. And similarly, there are people out there, because, and the proof's in the pudding, Fetterman could have said anything or not said anything, and there are people that were going to vote for him anyways. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what the debate's really for are the undecideds, or the people that aren't sure, or the people that are heavily leaning one way or lightly leaning one way, but could still be persuaded. And so those people, like, it's the general election, it's always strange the way our system is set up, where to win a primary, many times you have to run to the edge of your party. So if you're a left-winger, you have to run to the left. If you're a right-winger, you have to run to the right. And then once you win that primary, the extreme left's already going to vote Democrat. The extreme right's already going to vote Republican. So now you got to get those moderates and independents. So now you got to backtrack a little. The stream's muted for you? It should not be. Someone let me know. I think the way it looks like people are responding, I think the sound's working. So, also, if it's muted for you, then me talking to you about it won't help, right? Because you won't be able to hear me. There's a paradox, right? So that's sort of when I'm listening, I wish that there's a way to talk to that moderate audience, but be embracing the positions that I want to hear. My advice when people give, if you want a crash course on debate, this is the advice I give, or speaking in general. See, it depends on what type of debate. If it's debate like a game, it's different, right? Debate like a game is different. You could argue things you don't believe. It's a game. And, I've told you story after story. I had no problem walking into rounds and people saying, like, we should, give the land back to Native Americans, kick everyone out. Okay. As long as it's not personal, it's just a hypothetical debate. I don't mind. You could say exterminate men, exterminate white people. I've heard these arguments. No skin off my back. Now, once they start saying you're evil because you're white, you personally have done X. That gets a little chippier, but nonetheless, but that's a game, right? These sorts of positions, when you're public speaking, when you're in a public debate or something like that, the number one piece of advice that's 90% of all of your speaking is just be authentic. That's it. If you do that, everything will work itself out. It really is. It sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, even if you're a terrible public speaker, all the little tricks you could learn and the studying and the practicing, none of that will do you as much good as just be confident in who you are and being authentic. That's it. If you try to sound like someone you're not, eventually you'll be had. People will figure it out. If you're lying about your positions, it's hard, right? And Judge Judy says this on her show a lot. If you're telling the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. So if you're just being who you are, you don't have to keep all these stories straight in your head, right? Now, sometimes you change positions. That's not the end of the world. So maybe 5 years ago you were against fracking, but now you're for it. You just have to say why. Well, this is why I'm for it now. And so if you're authentic, that's the majority of what's going on. You could be authentic and still tailor your message to who your audience is. So that's what you have to keep in mind, though, when you're looking at this debate. Who is this debate for? And so when you're grading the debate, I could say, I think Oz seems like a milquetoast sort of corporatist Republican. So a lot of the issues like that I talk about, corruption and stuff, he ain't going to do anything about. And trust me, if he wins, I'll hold his feet to the fire. And similarly, if you're a progressive, you're probably not going to freak out when you hear Fetterman say, well, actually, I support fracking. That might infuriate you if you're a progressive lefty and climate change is your big issue. And so you're like, oh, no. But you have to understand who he's speaking to right then. He's speaking to moderates and independents here in Pennsylvania. That energy is a huge issue, and it's a huge part of the economy here. Yeah, you don't want to talk like you're in the ghetto. AOC did that the other day. She started talking like she was a Southern preacher. You need to understand to rectify the problems brought forth in this country by the people that seek to destroy this country. Do you not understand that the man at the gate in D.C. seeks to keep your riches from you, seeks to destroy your family from within? Yeah, you don't talk like that if that's not who you are. Bragging about hot sauce in your I'm going to get yelled at for being loud here. Oh, sorry. Less loud. Wife yelling at me. That is cultural appropriation. There was a kid in our debate team. He happened to be black, but he did the best, like, fiery Southern Baptist preacher I've ever heard. He used to I would laugh my ass off. I thought it was hilarious. I would, we'd have these long drives. I'd be like, hey man, do the preacher. The shit he would come up with, it's cracked me up. So when analyzing this debate, my grade of F minus and B to B minus for Dr. Oz, F minus for Fetterman, is how they did to me, to that moderate independent audience, the audience that hadn't made up their mind. And I saw a clip, maybe I'll play it later, where they were interviewing all these people like independents, left-wingers, right-wingers, and who do you think won? And predictably, every right-winger was like Oz, but almost every independent was like Oz. And then a lot of the Democrats were like, yeah, Fetterman didn't look good. I played some of those clips yesterday. There was a clip I saw of an independent guy today that was like, I don't know how anyone in their right mind that's remotely objective could consider voting for Fetterman after this. Right. I don't know, bruv, I'm just scared. So it's when you see independents saying things like that, it's like, yeah, that's why it's an F minus. It's like I can't think of one vote that was gained for Fetterman last night, but I can think of an awful lot that were lost. It's just literally, please run out the clock, stop the bleeding. It's that bad. So we're going to look at some reactions to the debate. That was my review. Now I did, if you don't mind the poor audio quality, you could go to YouTube, a Rumble, my channels and see my review from last night. It's about 3 hours. The audio quality's crap, but we'll talk about that. Guess who farted? About his wife and stuff. But if you want a big, long review of the whole debate, you could go check that out. And I try my best to say, this is what I would have said. This is the good points that I think both of them made. There weren't a lot for Fetterman, but I tried to steelman his position. I did. So maybe that's something you would enjoy. To me, the story of Fetterman being unqualified to run isn't the main story, believe it or not. And that's odd because you'd say, but Rob, isn't this one of the biggest races to see who control the Senate? Yeah. I mean, Arizona, Georgia, PA. Ohio's going to be big. But you got to put PA in the top three of like, okay, this is a battleground. PA's a Republican Senator Toomey that's leaving. It's a state that voted for Biden. It's a state that it was predicted that Democrats would win both the governor race and the Senate race. And so this was one that Democrats really needed to pick up. So it's going to be a very important race. So how could it be that someone falling flat in their face isn't the biggest story? Well, because the bigger story is, and it's kind of two-pronged, but it's the same story basically, is every once in a while, something will come around that with absolute clarity shows how corrupt our institutions are. You have a moment like an MSNBC anchor standing in front of a city on fire saying, it's mostly peaceful. Those moments, to me, are some of the most important moments to highlight. Because as someone who understands how inept and corrupt all of these institutions are, it's difficult for me sometimes to impart to sort of people that don't really take an interest. And let me be clear. Most of you watching have more of an interest in politics than the average person I deal with on my day-to-day life. I don't have a lot of friends connected to me that care all that much about politics. They do more now because of the lockdowns. That's right. It's a gateway to normies. That's a good way. So I could talk about, for example, the persecution of nonviolent January 6th protesters. It's very important to talk about. But that's not getting my neighbor fired up. I could talk about the corruption between the FBI and Russiagate and the spying on Donald Trump and the raiding of Mar-a-Lago. But again, those are sort of complicated. But there are issues that are simple. Epstein. All of these wealthy, powerful people in both parties and outside of politics sexually trafficking young children, completely getting off the hook. Us being told Epstein killed himself. That resonates. Sexualization of kids in schools. That resonates. People get that. Got it. That, by the way, I know people are like, I don't know why this is an issue. The trans, like athletics and stuff like that resonates. That's easy to understand. People have daughters. They're like, yeah, I get that. Right? But when it comes to just flat out like showing how dishonest people are, something like last night has incredible clarity. Now, not everyone watched the debate. And you have to understand, a lot of the reactions are sort of fake it till you make it type reactions. Well, if we just all say that Fetterman won and he did great, the people that didn't watch will be like, okay, sounds good to me. At least a percentage of them. But those that did watch, that walk away going, oh my goodness, that was terrible. That then see so many people saying, Fetterman did great, and you're a bigot if you think otherwise. You're an ableist. It's a moment of clarity, and it's a moment that we should spend some time on, which I plan to do tonight, to let people know the same people that are lying to you, blatantly lying to you right now, are the same people that told you you had to trust them on COVID, and Afghanistan, and Iraq, and Libya, and January 6th, and Ukraine, and Russia, and China, and the border, and inflation, and lockdowns, and vaccines, Same people. The exact same people. Now, those issues are difficult. Take an issue such as vaccines. Vaccines, regardless of what you think here, the issue of vaccines is very complicated. And I'm talking specifically about the COVID vaccine. And the reason it's complicated is because most lay people aren't qualified to read studies, or they don't have time to read studies, or it's difficult for them to interpret. It's even as much as some people want to say, it's not as simple as just go to the VAERS database. There you go. It's not that simple. Now, I spent a lot of time looking into it. I've made my opinions quite clear on what I think about it, but that's hard to impart. You know, when I start doing, well, according to the CDC's newest paper, thank you, robnoerr, appreciate it. According to the CDC's newest paper, you only have a 0.0216 chance of being hospitalized if you had a previous case of COVID. And that slightly increases to a 0.0223% chance if you get a vaccine. Like that, people are just like, okay, whatever. But this issue, a man who could barely speak, who should be in a rehabilitation center, he shouldn't be working a desk job somewhere. That's how bad it is. And to watch him painfully go through that last night, which he brings on himself, don't get me wrong. He had the stroke before the primary was over. He could have backed out and let someone else be the Democratic candidate. He didn't. Probably because his wife and his friends and family pressured him into staying in the race because they're power hungry. It's disgusting. He should have had loved ones say, no, it's time to step back. Again, it was just days before the primary, but it was before the primary. He had a chance, but he didn't have loved ones that did the right thing. So I don't feel too bad for him. But nonetheless, you can't help but see, man, he's struggling up there. And then to watch, predictably, as I told you last night, to then watch so many people come out and be like, I'm proud, it was courageous. How dare, you're a bigot if you think he didn't do a good job. It's laughable. We should focus on it to let the normies, I don't usually use that word, but to let average people see just how corrupt these people are. And the other, I said there were two things. That's one. The other is connected to it, but they lied to you and me and everyone and the people of Pennsylvania over and over and over when they kept telling us, we talked to Fetterman, we don't see a problem. His doctor lied to us. The media professionals, all except that Donna or whatever her name is, that came out from MSNBC and was like, there's a problem here. Everyone but her lied. Fetterman's team lied. They want your vote in Pennsylvania. They blatantly lied to you. And they didn't lie to you like, well, we said that we supported this bill, but technically I didn't support. I'm not talking about that sort of lie. I'm telling you, they lied to you when you had legitimate questions about his medical issues. They lied right to your face. And they lied to you about Biden. They lied about his medical issues too. The only difference is Fetterman's even worse than Biden is. Isn't it a good thing for Republicans? Either Fetterman wins and performs horribly, or he loses because he's obviously not competent. Well, I vote Republican. It's not a good thing for me. I care less about my side winning and more about the right thing happening for the country. I'm not going to be happy to be like, oh, okay, Fetterman won. Yay, he's incompetent. Now I'm struggling in Pennsylvania, or the United States is struggling. That's not a victory for me. What do you want a mod for? I think I have enough mods on Twitter right now. Right, that's why you're not getting a mod. So to all those people, and that woman from MSNBC, I forget her name, but Fetterman's wife released like a statement, was like, she ought to face consequences for saying that there was a problem with my husband. For those that don't know, there was one interview that he did on MSNBC where they had to set up closed captioning, and the woman who conducted the interview just announced, she was like, listen, he didn't seem right before we had this caption set up. It seemed like I didn't think he understood what I was saying. And They came out knives out for her. Fetterman's wife came out, a bunch of media people, a bunch of Democrats came out. How dare you? There need to be consequences for this lady. And it turns out she's totally vindicated. And there were people saying things like, oh, no, that's a lie. I talked to Fetterman. He's fine. They're wrong. They're lying. What's up, Bill? How you doing, sir? That's the real story. They're blatant. Now listen, let me be clear. Let's clear some things before we get going here and look at some reactions. I don't really think that horrible performance from Fetterman last night means that you can't vote for Fetterman. How could you think that, Robbie? He's not qualified. Let me put it to you this way. Let's get some answers in the chat. If I was to ask you, who is the most hated politician you've ever seen? Who do you hate the most? Who would you never in a million years, but the last person you would ever vote for? For me, probably Hillary Clinton's near the top of the list. She represents everything that I hate. Romney's bad, but Hillary's even worse, in my opinion. Just this corporatist, shill, corrupt. Right. Hillary Clinton. Right. If Hillary Clinton, for some reason, runs in 2024, and her opponent is Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis has a stroke, and he can't even speak, I'd vote for Ron DeSantis over Hillary Clinton. I would. Does anyone disagree? Would you, that person you hate the most, would you vote for someone who basically couldn't talk over them? I would. And people would say, but Robbie's not qualified. I'd rather have someone who's incompetent and not qualified than someone who I think is actively working to destroy the country. And so if I'm being completely honest, if you're a left-winger that's like, I hate Republicans, I hate Dr. Oz, I think they're insurrectionists, I'm not surprised that Fetterman's poor performance has no effect on you. I'm not. I don't think that, and I don't even think that the rest of us should be shocked. That's not who the audience for the debate were. It was built into the cake. There were 35% of people at least that were going to vote for Fetterman no matter what. Probably higher than that, 40%, 40, That's just it. There was nothing. He could have passed out on the stage and then rushed him to a hospital and people would have been like, still voting for Fetterman. I don't want Oz. Yeah, Fetterman's policies, don't get me wrong. I don't like Fetterman's policies. I think Fetterman's unfit for office, right? This isn't saying, I understand why you're voting for Fetterman because I like him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are people that hate Dr. Oz and hate Trump and hate Republicans, and nothing that occurred in this debate would have made them change their mind. That's understandable. And so if you're a Democratic operative and you're on Twitter today like, well, I'm still going to vote for him, I don't really have a problem with that, to be honest. I think that his policies are crap. I think that it shows sort of anytime they raise criticism about Trump's mental health and things like that, it was garbage. When they raised points about Herschel Walker's potential mental health issues, it was a lie. It shows that they're hypocrites. No, I don't think Oz is that level of corrupt. I'm not speaking, everyone understands, I'm speaking as if I'm a progressive, Trump-hating, MAGA-hating Democrat. Right? I'm not saying that's how I believe. But I'm just not surprised that and we'll see. I'll give you some examples. I'll show you what I mean. So the argument, I'm going to vote for this guy anyways, I'm not focusing on that argument tonight. The one I have a problem with is the lie, he did good. That's the problem. That's the gaslighting. Or you're ableist and a bigot if you point, and Dr. Oz was a bigot. He was attacking him for his medical condition. Those are the arguments I have a problem with. That's the garbage. Because the people that are saying that, no, it is blatantly obvious he did terrible. And yet they're willing to sacrifice their dignity and their reputation to say the opposite of the truth blatantly in front of everyone. Those are the people you should never trust ever again on anything. Now, I'm preaching to the choir to most of you. Oh, media matters. Yeah, we already didn't trust them. Yeah, me neither. But what I'm trying to say is to the people that were independent or slightly left-leaning or slightly right-leaning, do you see how corrupt our institutions are? The both sides argument is one of the dumbest. It's such a lame argument. Right. There are shitty people on both sides. Right. Got it. The amount of influence that our institutions have and how they're almost all one-sided is incredibly biased towards Democratic Party or the establishment parties. It's just true. Just true. And so the both sides thing don't really cut it for me. If this debate had been the exact same two people, except it was Dr. Oz that had the stroke, and he talked in that way, his campaign would be over. Every single major media channel, every single major newspaper would nonstop be out there today like, this is terrible, this person's not medical. How do I know? Well, they freaked out about Trump and wanted to use the 25th Amendment to remove him and demanded that his doctor announce that Trump went through proper physical tests. Was Trump eating too many cheeseburgers? Trump drank too many Cokes, blah, blah, blah. Imagine if Trump behaved like that. They would say he's unfit, this is a crisis. The Democrats would immediately be moving to impeach him, to remove him from office. Is the televised debate an outdated idea? I'll talk about that in a second. Maybe, but that's not a good thing. And so, I guess I'll speak to that now. One of the things that I said that I think I said better than anyone in the country. By the way, tell your friends to watch me. Send me all your money so I could get bigger as a show. Now I would appreciate you shouting me out, but money I take too, but. When people talk about problems with the 2020 election, conservative commentators were a dime a dozen that were talking about Dominion voting machines and ballot harvesting and things of that nature. Now, I talked a little on things like that, but I didn't feel that I needed to jump headfirst in that because a lot of that stuff was difficult to verify. And quite frankly, a lot of it sounded like bullshit to me. I give the story of Navy SEALs were fighting in Germany at where they were housing servers for Dominion, and there was this bloody battle, and the Navy SEALs got the server. It sounded like bullshit to me. I'm just not commenting on that stuff. Whatever, dumb. Some of the stuff that was more reasonable, I did comment on, such as the issues with signature verification in Pennsylvania. But even I didn't have proof that there were enough signatures that would have been unverified that would have tipped the balance. I heavily suspect that there are a lot of things that need looked into in the election. But seeing as how I'm on YouTube right now, I completely agree with YouTube, though, that it's horrible to suggest that the election could have been stolen. That's like, everyone understands that, right? We're on YouTube, and YouTube did their due diligence. We know that this was the most secure election ever, right? Everybody understands that. And we know that there will be questions with the 2022 and 2024 elections because that's what Hillary Clinton told us, and that's what Merrick Garland and them seem to be suggesting. So I would never, I just want to be clear. From the bottom of my heart, everyone understands, right? You all understand. There were no problems with the election. But I could see people saying that things should be looked into. That's all I'm saying, right? Got it? But what I said was, all of those questions aside, here's what we have to ask ourselves. Let's assume for a moment, as YouTube's already proven, that there were no shenanigans at the ballot box with voting machines and that the vote tallies were 100% accurate. Let's assume that for a second. Is that worse? If there is corruption, if there is cheating, hypothetically, you could get to the bottom of it. You could have an investigation, perhaps, and have someone, rat someone else out, and you could get to the bottom of who was stealing votes and harvesting ballots and things of that nature. But what if that wasn't the case? What if a bunch of powerful institutions were able to come together to craft a narrative to convince the plurality of people to vote for a man who basically had dementia and wasn't campaigning? What if campaigns in the future aren't going to be decided based on who has the most articulate way to speak to the people, who has the most compassion, who has the best policies, but instead would be decided based on who Google wanted to win? How's that look for our country in perpetuity? What if the way the algorithms ran and the way that stories are promoted and censored on mainstream media outlets and social media outlets, etc., were enough to pick and choose the winners of national elections? To me, that's a bigger threat than, in this particular election, ballots were harvested. And that's what I spent my time talking about. Of course, then the Time magazine article came out that talked about a shadowy cabal, Chamber of Commerce, Democratic organizations, corporate America, coming together to fortify the election for Joe Biden. They were they worked on changing voting laws in all of these places, and they worked on censoring stories that were critical of Joe Biden and promoting stories that were critical of Donald Trump. You can't talk about that. I've been struck twice on YouTube for talking about that article, for just commenting on an article that notorious conspiracy rag, Time magazine. So are debates outdated? I don't know. You tell me. If Fetterman wins this race, let's say it's a legitimate election and Fetterman wins, what does that say? He's basically not campaigned. He showed up and not spoke at events, or he choppily speaks for 2-3 minutes. He has a team that's running his Twitter, making snarky comments. That's it. He's at a Dave Matthews concert tonight in Pittsburgh. Dave Matthews is doing a concert for him. Oh boy. If this guy could win, if debates aren't important, then what's the future of our politics? You might be right, peer review. Well then, whoever Google promotes wins. Oh, Bill, I couldn't disagree more about the FBI. Whoever the culture designs, all the hip rap artists and musicians and football players and basketball players and Nike and Goldman Sachs and Google and Facebook. Who do they like? Okay, they win. Who cares how people could talk to the American people? Who needs debate? Who needs two candidates disagreeing and discussing their ideas for people to make up their own? Who needs that? You might be right. I don't think that's a good place for our country to go. Imagine that the debate didn't occur last night. You don't have to imagine too hard, because the other big race in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who is currently the AG here in Pennsylvania. For those that didn't know, John Fetterman is currently the lieutenant governor. Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor, is the attorney general. He's running against Doug Mastriano. No debate. Josh Shapiro won't debate him. Okay. So what do we know about that race? Well, we know that Doug Mastriano is an insane radical who participated in the insurrection, January 6th, and he wants to prosecute women who ever even thought about having an abortion, and he's going to rip everyone's Medicare away, and he's going to lock up the gay people. That's Doug Mastriano. No, that's bullshit, but that's the messaging. Hell, Karl Rove is out there campaigning for Democrat Josh Shapiro. Now, if Doug Mastriano was able to debate Josh Shapiro and Josh Shapiro brought some of this stuff up, Doug Mastriano could rebut it and people could decide for themselves. But because that's not going to happen, well, Doug Mastriano better have enough money to overcome the institutional bias towards Josh Shapiro. Otherwise, he loses. Doesn't matter if his policies are better for Pennsylvania or not. Doesn't matter if his policies are being accurately depicted. None of that matters. And Democrats know this, and they used to complain about it. It's why they used to scream about Citizens United. We need to get money out of politics. There was a debate that occurred a long time ago, like 2007, 2008. It was at Politicon, and it was between Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks and Ben Shapiro. And there was an interesting, very interesting part of this debate that I thought about before that debate, but it got brought up in the debate. And that was this idea. Cenk keeps talking about we need to get money out of politics, need to get money out of politics, need to get money out of politics. Ben Shapiro's basically like, okay, but the Young Turks, which is a media channel, was financed by this ridiculous billionaire who gave you millions of dollars to start up your channel. Should your channel have to be unbiased? Are you allowed to favor one candidate over another? And he's like, of course, that's different. Right. So if you got all the money out of politics, then what are you left with? Well, okay, well then the messaging's coming from the people that control social media, the people that control the mainstream media. How do you think they are going to push people? So the Democrats screaming about money out of politics, they have no problem that Jeff Bezos runs, Twitch and runs the Washington Post. They don't have a problem with that. Those are media outlets. That's different. The problem is, with money in politics, the problem is, one, that you'll give political favors for the money. And that second, because money is so effective in shaping a narrative, that whoever has the most money probably stands the best chance of winning. But the money part is only a step to, well, why does the money work? My friend Bill's in here. He was in debate with me, right? We call those internal links to impacts, right? Your plan harms the economy. Okay. And that'll cost people jobs. Okay, well, what's the impact of that? Why is losing jobs bad? And you'd be like, well, that's obvious. It's obvious why losing jobs is bad. But you have to say, it's bad because people will struggle at home. It'll cause all sorts of turmoil and economic impacts on households, increases demands on social services, it'll cause bankruptcy, recession, et cetera, et cetera. But you can always, it's like the joke with the little kid, right? Why? What? The sky's blue. Why? Well, because, of all these gases and the reflection of light. Why? You could keep saying that, A better example is diversity is our strength. Well, what does that mean? When you say that, almost always what you're talking about is diversity of thought, diversity of action. So how can we get to diversity in thought and action? Well, one way might be people that look different and come from different backgrounds. So a white person and a black person might have diversity because they come from different types of people. But maybe not. Maybe they totally agree and have the exact same skill set. Well, then that's not diversity. Just your ethnicity is one step that might lead to the diversity. But that's where the left stops. They stop at that step. They say, diversity of skin color, that's enough. But everybody should think alike. Well, that's not diversity. Right, which causes nuclear war. Everything in debate causes nuclear war. Or give the land back to the Indians. Yeah. So what's the ultimate problem with money in politics is that it allows you to craft the narrative and ensure that you win, which means that a system of the best ideas and the best candidates doesn't occur because instead it's, well, who could get the best messaging out there? One way might be you're just billions of dollars and you could buy ads and you could promote yourself in various ways. One way may be that all of these institutions favor you. And so much of the narrative comes from them. And so maybe Google tweaks their algorithm. So you don't hear the positive things about Donald Trump. You hear the negative. And you don't hear the negative things about Joe Biden. You hear the positive. Professor Robert Epstein said that Google and their parent company Alphabet alone could have swayed 16 million votes in 2020 through manipulation of the algorithm, censoring of videos on YouTube. 16 million. Now, we're in a country that's divided enough that the election was basically decided by a few tens of thousands of votes in a couple states. Now, you could get all the money out of politics and say no one's ever allowed to donate ever again. And if Google decides that they're going to go all in on manipulation of the algorithm, would it really matter? Have you solved the problem? So the left understands this. But they don't have a problem as long as the influence is on their side. Then they're okay with it. Then all of a sudden it's, well, do we even, and I'm not saying peer review said this, but we don't even need debates. Who cares about it? Who cares? We just know that the Republicans are a threat to democracy. They're fascists. That's all that matters. How do I know? Well, ABC tells me that, and CBS tells me that, and NBC tells me that, and MSNBC tells me that, and CNN tells me that, and the New York Times tells me that, and the Washington Post tells me that, and every late night comedy show tells me that, and every entertainer tells me that, and academia tells me that. Social media people that run it, they all tell me that and censor people that disagree. And then the people that disagree with that are Breitbart, a couple people on Fox like Tucker, racist. OAN. Rush Limbaugh, he died, unfortunately. But both sides do it. So that's what's hilarious about and scary at the same time about this. The mask is coming up. They don't even try anymore. Yeah, Fetterman did great. You're a bigot if you disagree. Is there a more productive event to hold? I don't think so. There are different ways that you could stage a debate, but I think debate's good. I think letting the two people that are running for the office speak in front of people is good. There are many different formats that the debate could take. I actually thought, and I'll be straight up with you. I talked to a good friend of mine who's involved in politics. He thought the moderation last night was terrible. I thought it was great. I did. I thought the moderators were pretty even-handed. That's how I felt. It's hardly the big story of the night, but I honestly felt that way. But the big story is the mask coming off. They don't care anymore. And it's becoming, it's refreshing, but it's also becoming, it's also scary, right? What does that mean? When Joe Biden goes on television and tells you how great this economy is doing, it's obvious bullshit. Now, I'm not saying it's bullshit in the sense that you can't take numbers and manipulate them in statistics to make any economy. You could take certain statistics and make the Great Depression sound like a good economy. You could. The example I gave the other day is the movie Major League, right? Where, Bob Uecker, Harry Doyle, I think's his name, he's the announcer. The Indians, the baseball team the movie's about, they're terrible. But he's like, in August, in the month of August, on days that are raining, after the third inning and before the seventh inning, when he comes up second at bat, he's batting seventh in the league. It's like, yeah, statistics are like that. But everybody knows that the economy sucks. It sucks right now for the majority of people. It sucks. Everybody knows the claim it was the most secure election ever is bullshit. Everyone knows it. We all know that. Everyone. Biden knows it. The left knows it. Bill Barr knows it. They all know that's garbage. The DOJ knows that. Merrick Garland knows it. That doesn't mean that, so you're saying everybody knows the election was stolen. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they know it's garbage that it was the most secure election ever. It's bullshit. We all know it. But they say it. The economy is great. Most secure election ever. It was an insurrection. Bullshit. We all know it. Or if you do think it was an insurrection, maybe you're not BSing, but then you're BSing if you don't think the attacks on the White House on May 30th, 2020, where they actually did use lethal weapons such as Molotov cocktails and burned down a guard station out the White House, that wasn't an insurrection. I'm on Twitch, so I have to be careful, but everybody knows some people can't get pregnant. Everybody knows it. We all know. Oh my God, Norm Macdonald's Bob Uecker story, some of my favorites. You might think he bites the heads off of chickens. Yeah. So we know these things. You know, it is incredible to watch person after person, not just left-wing politicians, but predominantly, tell you that you couldn't leave your home or grandma would die. And then over and over, we caught them. Ah, my bad. You caught me at a fancy restaurant. Sorry. Oh, I told you couldn't get your hair cut, but I was at the salon. Sorry. Oops. Like, they're not even trying. They just, You know, another moment of clarity like this debate last night was the photo that Stacey Abrams took with those kids, where all the kids who are at the least risk for contracting and spreading COVID, they all have masks on, and Stacey Abrams, who's, you know, a slightly bigger lady, being polite, you know, I'm a big dude. I ain't making that fun of anyone for being fat. But, you know, that's a comorbidity, and she's older than the kids. She's not wearing a mask. There she is smiling. And I said, to me, the incredible thing about that story wasn't that she wasn't wearing a mask and the kids had to. I know that. I know they're hypocrites. I know that they're power-hungry authoritarians. Rules for the plebes and not for them. But it was that no one pulled her aside and said, hey, for the photo op, can you put a mask on real quick? And part of me is like, is it just that they're that stupid? They didn't realize how bad that looked? But probably the truth is they just don't give a shit. Whatever. We run everything. We don't care. We control the narrative. They want to rub it in your face. See, there's nothing you can do about it. The FBI going after school board parents while saying Antifa's not really an organization. What? You know, one of the stories today, I don't know if I'll get to talk about it, but Justice Alito came out and said the Supreme Court, the leak of the Roe v. Wade decision, the Dobson decision, was designed to put fear in the justices that voted to overturn it by causing them to fear for their life. Go to Twitter and see what the left's saying about it. They're like, oh, fuck you, Alito. Women fear for their life. Now they can't have abortions. Oh, poor you. They don't give a shit. They know. Every one of us knew that's what that was designed to do. And we knew when there's assassination attempts against Kavanaugh and people are illegally protesting outside the justices' houses, we knew that that's what was going on. They knew. The justices knew. The DOJ knew. Merrick Garland knew. I knew. The Democrats knew. Everybody knew that's what was going on. It was intimidation designed to pressure them to change their mind, which is illegal. And yet, almost everyone on the left, including the DOJ, including people like Pisco that I debated on this, didn't have a problem. Well, I don't know. They'll raid the pro-life people's house in front of their kids, lock them up and throw away the key, but couldn't be bothered to stop the people that were protesting and intimidating the Supreme Court justices, even after an assassination attempt. Couldn't stop those illegal protests. Couldn't do it. All of a sudden it was, wow, free speech is important and blah, blah, blah. But don't you dare show up to an abortion clinic upset. Don't you dare. Now I hear that they're going to arrest people that are trying to film ballot boxes. Don't do that. That's a crime. You want to light Molotov cocktails outside the White House and burn down a guard station? Slap on the wrist. Yeah, we talked about Zelensky. I know a lot. We'll focus on that another night. But yeah, it's terrible. Everybody knows that too, that's a big money laundering scam. So when you see these masks off moments, right, where it's just like, yeah, Fetterman did good and you're a bigot for disagreeing. It's incredible. Now, I could show you all of the tweets. Just go to Twitter. You could see it. To their credit, there are some people that you would be like, like I saw people on Politico like this looked really bad. I saw Chris Coons say, it didn't look good, who's a Democrat. Cenk Uygur said it didn't look good. Hasan, we'll see, saying it didn't look good. There are certainly people on the left that are like, yeah, this looked bad. But there are an awful lot that are saying, it was a moment of courage and braveness. Oh, to stand up there, and Dr. Oz was a bully. Can you believe it? And I thought Fetterman sounded good. My favorite example of this was last night. The newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I will see if I can find this. This is unreal. The Philadelphia Inquirer had like editors and writers that, oops, excuse me, that gave their opinion on the debate. Let's see if I can find the article. It's behind a paywall. It's going to be tough to find this, to be honest. I'm sure that they're trying to hide their shame. Give me a second. Oh, for crying out loud. You gotta use like the Wayback Machine or archive.is to. There's right after the debate. Who won the debate? Philadelphia Inquirer. One of the bigger papers in Philly, the biggest city in the state. John Fetterman got a score of 4.3 out of 10. And you can see these people, 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 4 out of 10, etc. We'll get to them. So the important part to remember is all of these people that work for the Inquirer, their averages, Fetterman was a 4.3 out of 10. What was Dr. Oz? 4.1. That's right. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, that sat and watched this debate, professional journalists, according to them, it was close, but Fetterman eked it out. How could you clown yourself so terribly? And this is the coup de grace. Debbie Lockwood here, who I noticed, she's a commentary and ideas editor. Here's what she said about Fetterman. 7 out of 10. Fetterman had zingers, saying that Oz has never met an oil company that he didn't swipe right on. Hearing Fetterman say that Roe v. Wade should be the law led me to audibly sigh in relief. Abortion should be a choice between a pregnant person and their doctor. 7 out of 10. Wow. Imagine watching Fetterman last night. Forget what you think of Dr. Oz. Remember, this isn't them saying this is who I'd vote for. This is their analysis as professional media people, journalists, their analysis on how they thought the debate went. Imagine watching that debate and saying, 7 out of 10, Fetterman. Now, when Debbie Lockwood, the commentary and ideas editor, is telling you about Roe v. Wade and the problems of overturning it, or voting laws, or January 6th, or inflation, do you think she's any more truthful than she is right here when she's saying 7 out of 10? What do you think she rated Dr. Oz? Any guesses? I gave Dr. Oz a B-. That'd be close to a 7 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. C, B-. Let's see what Debbie gave him, Dr. Oz. Debbie gives Dr. Oz a 1 out of 10. His plan to unleash the energy beneath our feet is frankly frightening. I'd encourage Oz to listen to the parents of kids with leukemia that live near fracking sites. Also, leaving abortion up to the states will create pockets of the country that feel like The Handmaid's Tale. No, thank you. There you go. There's the paper of record in Philadelphia. What do you say to that? These aren't Joe Schmo random streamers online. This is a paper that's probably going to be heavily influential in who gets votes in Philadelphia. And that's the credibility of their analysis. Randy West, I have no idea. I didn't ban you. I didn't see what your word was. If it was a word that gets you banned, don't say it, I guess. But I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. It could have been the auto censors. Twitch bans things, but. So that's the level. Now I thought, in my own little world here, who do you trust? Who do you trust? Money, 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 right? The Joker from the old Batman movie. I could listen to CNN and I could listen to the Philadelphia Inquirer and a litany of people that you could find right now. Go to Twitter. You could find a litany of people right now saying Fetterman did pretty good. I saw a New York Times article that suggested it's all about bravery. It's bigotry. Like, go ahead. You could find article after article, blue check after blue check, and certainly tens of thousands, seemingly, of people, many of whom are probably bots, that are talking about how excellent Fetterman did. Now, I could give my analysis of the debate, but I thought maybe it would be fun to find some left-wing streamers and see what their reaction was in real time. Now, unfortunately, I worked all day today and was busy, and so it was difficult for me to find every streamer. And the reason I used streamers was this. I could pull up clip after clip of, Joe Scarborough or someone from MSNBC or, Don Lemon, etc. But those aren't people reacting in real time to the debate, right? And when you get time to spin it how you want afterwards, that's a little different. I wanted people that were watching the debate live. And I found a couple that are left-wingers because it's not just in what you say. It's what your face gives away, what your body language gives away, what your chat community is saying. So I had some of these time-stamped, and unfortunately, I lost my notebook that it had the timestamp. But I thought that there were two people that I wanted to look at, and I asked, I'm sure there were many, many more left-wing commentators that were commenting on the debate, but I didn't get to see it. So these were the two I saw. The first person is a person named I'm Really Important. Now, you might know I'm Really Important if you ever watched the Offspring video, Pretty Fly for a White Guy. He's the white guy in the video. Yay. I've also debated I'm Really Important. Suffice it to say, I don't think he's the worst person in the world, but he is not very good at debating his positions, and he knows it. The last time that I offered to interact with him, he told me that he did not wish to do so because, quote, he likes to stay in his bubble. Totally get it. If I got blown out in debates all the time because I couldn't defend my positions, I would want to stick to people that agreed with me as well. So, I'm Really Important is going to analyze this debate. Brief side note, just something that I noticed. Last night there was like some shithead that was on like, stop talking, let them debate, blah, blah, blah. I asked my audience what they'd rather have me do. I find it incredibly boring to watch how other people stream these debates, which is just, they let the debate play while they sit there and eat potato chips and they're like, yeah, it's a good point. And they get up and they go to the bathroom or something. It's like, wow, there's content. By the way, most of them have more people watching them than me, but it's like, shit, are you kidding me? I actually paused the debate and commented and then let the debate go, but that was my style. The downside of doing it the way I do it is you don't get to see the debate in real time. We start at the right time, but because I'm pausing, by the end of it, it took 3 hours. So, all right, let's start. We're going to start at the beginning. So I actually, just before I came on, I saw this little section of I'm Really Important's thing, and I thought it was worth keeping in because it's the pre-debate enthusiasm, which makes everything that follows funnier, right? Now, keep in mind, the people that are gaslighting you in the Democratic Party, in the Fetterman camp, in the media that are telling you that Fetterman did good. Here's someone who no doubt is cheering for Fetterman, whose audience is no doubt cheering for Fetterman. Why don't you look and see if you think, looking at the following clips, and we'll skim through it, if they seem to think that Fetterman's having a good performance, right? Here we go.
Should be good.
We are child care voters.
This
We.
is paid for by Children First Action Fund.
ABC 27 is your local election headquarters. Start your day off right with ABC 27 News Daybreak. Weekday mornings.
It's good.
With
It's good.
Ali Lanyon. ABC.
I'm obviously not going to watch his whole
Main
thing.
events matters.
Pennsylvanians are in pain. I see it in your faces.
Look
your
at this
eyes.
ad. Inflation is hurting everyone. Gas prices, food prices, retirement savings diminished.
Where is he?
Fetterman would raise everyone's taxes, making inflation that much worse. We need more balance and less extremism.
Don't worry, we're going to skim through.
I'm a politician. I'm a heart surgeon.
But I just wanted you to see this. It's clear, just so there's no dispute on which side he's on.
It's what doctors do. I'm Dr. Oz. I approve this message.
Helping our viewers is what I'm here for. If you're having trouble getting results, contact the ABC 27 investigators at abc27.com.
Get 'em, ABC.
Investigators.
Elections are right around the corner. If you want to make sure your voice is heard,
there's just one little
it's
clip that I
important to
saw.
know how, when,
Let's speed it
and
up a
where
little.
to vote. That's why AARP created an election guide that includes information on how to register, where to vote,
That sounds like
the
me.
rules for voting, and key voting deadlines.
This is the only debate between John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz. The big show, biggest race in the midterms right here. How will Fetterman do?
U.S. Senate debate is made possible by AARP.
All he's got to do is survive. All he's got to do is get through it.
Trust the ABC 27 weather team.
A Senate race now a spectacle.
He just got to survive.
My opponent, John Fetterman, by his own admission, grew up in luxury and privilege.
Insult stealing the spotlight while voters want a voice on the
Let me say how funny that is. He's just got to survive. Biggest race, just got to survive. Here's someone, right? Now tell me that this guy doesn't know how shit this candidate is. That's his big take. He's just got to survive. Why does he just got to survive? Because he knows, because all of the institutions are pushing for Fetterman, that all he has to do is not be a dead rock. And these institutions, he thinks, will push him over the finish line. What a candidate. What a candidate. Just has to survive when he's forced to talk to the Pennsylvania people. But notice, things to notice. The reason I'm playing this beginning, and then I promise we'll skip through. The reason I'm playing it is he's acknowledging that he's for Fetterman. He's acknowledging that this is the biggest race, right? So no backtracking. This is in real time, someone watching. And I think that you're about to see a little fist pump enthusiasm. Here we go, baby. Woo! Optimism going into the debate here for I'm Really Important.
issues.
I'm thinking about women's rights.
Unity of the people.
I'm looking for civility.
I think public health is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Tonight, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz face to face for the first and only time. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent.
There it is. There. Yeah, I get it. We got that out. Let's do it, baby. We're pumped for the big game. It's so good. Oh, it's so funny to me. Here we go, baby. There's the face of optimism. He's just got to survive. As long as he clears that benchmark of just surviving, I'm really important. He's pumped for it. Biggest race. Pump, pump, pumped. All right? So you got it. That's what I wanted you to see there at the beginning. Now let's chime right in. Let's get in. We're just going to skip to the Fetterman highlights.
What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. To life in prison, out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it with the arrest of the parole board.
Issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless.
Tonight's rule.
Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough.
All right, let's watch his
near
face.
Pittsburgh,
Let's see how he likes
and
it.
one term
Opening statement.
as lieutenant governor.
Good night, everybody.
You're running for a seat that could
Here we
decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man.
Did you see him raise his eyebrows? Oh, man. I mean, it's beautiful. Good night. What? Imagine what he's thinking right now. Uh-oh. Now, listen, though. The Philadelphia Inquirer thinks Fetterman's killing it already. Yeah, let's zoom in. Let's play it back. You ready? We'll zoom in a little. The reason I'm not zoomed in the full way is because I want you to see the chat at times, too.
Are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that,
Fetterman
let's
looks
get started.
great.
Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you.
Oh, did you hear that? Fetterman looks great. Is there a way to...
Your political experience includes serving as...
Are not tied to the captions
Listen. Fetterman
that the
looks
candidates
great.
will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that,
Fetterman
let's
looks
get started.
great.
Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi.
All right, we're going to slow her down. Now watch, I'm really important facial expression here. You ready? We're going half speed. Watch this.
Good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania.
Oh my God. Oh, I gotta keep it down. Oh my God. Fetterman looks great. And 10 seconds later, he's like, what's happening? Oh, man. But the Philadelphia Inquirer says Fetterman's killing it. Oh, man. Oh, man, I had so much fun watching this. I mean, I probably watched 20 minutes of this. I was skipping through. And I just couldn't. I mean, to me, it's just like, damn. It's so good. It's just, oh, man. All right, let's keep going. We'll back out. We'll change the speed back to normal. Whew. Man. That is good stuff. So we can see the chat here. Let's see what his chat's saying a little too.
He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the
Look at that smirk. Look at those eyebrows. Uh-oh. There's a guy that knows. I'm going to throw up. I'm so nervous, says this guy.
Oz rule that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about.
We get our first on the chat over here. Remember, most of these people are probably out there now saying, it was pretty good. Fetterman did pretty good. Time Really Important's credit, I think he's admitted on Twitter, he's like, it wasn't good for Fetterman. But how many of these people in the chat that are in real time like,
our record here, and he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate.
Shit, not the best opener. Oh no.
Mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality. But this is your...
How's that face look? Does that look like the face Philadelphia Inquirer saying is a clear victory for John Fetterman? Is that what that face looks like? Boy, it doesn't seem like his chat's too enthusiastic here, but that can't be. Blue check marks and Democrats told me all day today how well Fetterman did. What's wrong with these people? Why couldn't they see it? The brilliance of that opening statement there by Fetterman. Strange, right?
Your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington...
All right, let's skip ahead. Let's get to some more Fetterman stuff. No, they don't like Oz. I get that. That's fine. I'm not really concerned about that. I want to hear what they have to say about Fetterman.
Big tax rate. He supported...
Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden administration overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation, right now, because it's a tax on working families, and Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions. We must push back against corporate greed. We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well, too. We also be able to make more in...
Look at the chat here. Oz is a TV guy. Hard to watch this. Why is Fetterman the nominee? This is going to be ugly for Fetterman. It's like watching Max Headroom. Yeah. What? Where you at, Philadelphia Inquirer? Yeah, look at I'm Really Important's face there. Where you at? That's right. He has to convince himself to double down. They know. They know exactly. It's a bloodbath. It is the worst debate performance I've ever seen. And you might say, well, what do you expect? A guy had a stroke. Fair point. Why is he in running for office? That's exactly why I did this Aftershock, to watch people in real, because afterwards you could cope. And it's going to get even better with Hasan once we get to Hasan. So you could cope afterwards and you could listen to what other people said and spread the narrative and focus on how bad, Oz you think he is, how he's a bad man. Let's finish this little
Pennsylvania and make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed, or somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal to his comments that you have been making things.
Look at IRI. Look at his face, closing his eyes like, oh man. Far cry. He's looking good, he said before he said a word.
In China, Mr. Oz.
I've been trying to talk about policy issues with the people of Pennsylvania as a doctor.
Pretty good, huh? Pretty good. Let's get to the fracking part. I think that's an important part. And then we'll get to the end here, if I can find it, fracking. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Precision.
Dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania state.
Your changing position, 60 seconds.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical, and we can't be held,
Boy, that little nervous laugh was nice there. Whoopsies, yikes. Did you see that little nervous chuckle there?
Ransom to somebody like Russia. I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support fracking. I've never taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight.
Look at his chat. L. Oh, no. Terrible.
Tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's not just a statement you read. There are multiple pictures of him signing a moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John Fetterman, over.
That looked good, right? That looked good. Right? Philadelphia Inquirer, right? That looked good. That's him crushing it. That's Fetterman crushing this debate. Here's a bunch. Look at that chat there on the side. Huh, that's odd. Isn't it odd that a bunch of lefties that were cheering for John Fetterman in real time watched this and had this reaction? Let's do another slow-mo reaction,
Russia. I've always believed that energy is our own energy and create energy independence. I support fracking, and I stand and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's not just a statement you read. There are multiple pictures of him signing a moratorium.
Woo! But don't worry, trust your media. They're telling you Fetterman did well. Let's go to the end here. You can watch this if you want. You go to I'm Really Important's Twitch feed. So I want to skip ahead to sort of once he starts talking about the debate at the end. Now remember, when we're watching this, remember, so many left-wing outlets are saying you're a bigot if you think he didn't do well. Fetterman did great. Oz was terrible. Let's see a little summary here from our friend I'm Really Important.
Watch how they clean this up. I saw you guys. I saw a lot of you guys crying, upset. This is... Holy cow, man. What the... Oh, okay, listen. First of all, if you think that an election is lost off one debate that not everybody watches, then you're nuts. It's 2 weeks until the election. You think they're not going to have this guy on national television doing an interview talking about his injury and all that, or his recovery? Are you crazy? They're going to do the nicest cleanup, polish job on this guy you've ever seen in your life. They've invested way too much to let some random debate bring it all down. I don't think he did that bad. Obviously, he
Don't worry. The big money, the media, they'll clean it up. They'll make it look okay. These are the get money out of politics people. Okay, he looks like shit and doesn't know where he's at and he's terrible, but they'll clean it up. They'll clean it up. They'll change the narrative. Maybe Twitter will censor people that are critical of him. He didn't do that bad. Remember, though, he won the debate. If you listen to the bigwigs, he won it. Well, let's keep going.
Had a lot of problems in that debate. A lot of problems. But they are not because he's an idiot or because he's a bad candidate. He had a stroke. He had a stroke. I don't know why they agreed to this debate. I guess they thought that not doing the debate would be even worse. But you guys got to chill with your whole it's all over, doomer, this is the end. I mean, that is some entry-level politics analysis. You guys got to pick yourselves up off the ground. I can't be Uncle IRI here and nurse you guys back to health and put your binky in your mouth. You guys got to man up. You got to pick yourselves off the floor and start looking for bright sides, man. I'm telling you, they're going to spin the shit out of this right here. And don't be crying me a river. I mean, that's insane. The guy showed up. Watch how they clean this up. Watch how they clean this up. I saw you guys. I saw a lot of you guys crying, upset. This is politics, baby. The kitchen gets hot. You got to be along for the ride, guys. You can't just, it's not all smooth sailing. Oh, it's so easy. Oh, man. Why didn't it work out? Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, snaps. Welcome to politics. It's up and down. It's up and down. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You think anybody on the left is going to vote for Dr. Oz after that debate? Are you kidding me? Again, these debates are not for you and I. I said this at the beginning of the night. These debates are not for you and I. So whatever you think happened in this debate doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter at all.
All right, so we're done with I'm really important. You watch the rest if you want. I don't think I'm misrepresenting him. I wanted to leave him speaking his own words for a little chunk without interrupting so you can get a good feel for what he's saying. So he keeps saying they'll spin it. Interesting choice of words. They'll spin it. They'll clean it up. Does that sound like someone who had confidence that he did well in that debate? Must be nice to know that all the institutions agree with you and that they'll back your guy no matter what, and they'll spin it. Nice, right? That's where we are in elections, though. They will spin it. Now, the part that he's right about, I do have to admit, it is just one debate. He may very well win. I don't think so, but he may. And that should scare the shit out of each and every one of you. Want to know why? Because the people, the they that he's talking about, all of the Democrats, the big money, the institutions, the they that'll spin it. If he wins, it shows that the they spinning it means they could spin any amount of horse shit and be able to win the elections. I'll talk about I thought Dixon sounded much better than Whitmer. I thought Whitmer had a couple. I didn't watch the whole debate, but the highlights I saw, there was some big problems. Early voting. This shows that early voting's bad. Yes. As well. So there you have it. You judge for yourself. Did that look like a group of lefties that thought that he did well in the debate? Nope. It's a bunch that are coping, that knew in real time, based on their reactions, that he's getting crushed, that Fetterman's getting crushed, and that they're hoping that they'll be able to spin it. That's what that is. Now, let's move on. That time really important. I would have him on to talk about it, but he likes staying in his bubble. Now let's move on to the biggest political streamer on Twitch. Hasan Piker, nephew of Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Super, uber, progressive, know nothing, blowhard. Hilariously, Hasan's even more animated. Now, before we get to this, I thought I would be interested. So we already know what all of these bigwigs, the Philadelphia Inquirer, all of these blue check marks you could see on Twitter, we already know what they say about the performance. Let's say that you're a fan of Hasan's, and you're like, I wonder what Hasan thought how the debate went, but you don't necessarily have time to watch his video, or you didn't watch his video, so you're just checking him out on Twitter. Let's check Hasan's tweets. Now, let me ask you, based on this, what's your impression of who he thinks had the better debate performance? Ready? So this is just his most recent tweets and replies. He's going live 30 minutes ago. Okay. Every EMT should have to ask their local comptroller before resuscitating people. Okay, so he's going after Oz. Nonsense. Nothing about the debate. Oz's abortion policies. Retweeting. Doesn't like what Oz says there. America's so fucked up. Local news debate moderators say things like, Dr. Oz accused you of supporting socialized medicine. Dr. Oz said there'd be no doctors. Watching this debate in a few live before it started, Dr. Oz is behaving like a piece of shit. That's it. That's his comments. Bunch of stuff critical of Oz. Seems like Oz had a bad night, right? Oz must not have done so well. Okay, maybe. Let's see, right? Let's see how this went. Again, we'll be skipping through.
Online
I'm gonna mulch
and
so
on News
much.
Nation. And we encourage everyone who is watching tonight to share your thoughts on social media. Remember to use the hashtag #PACentristDebate.
Can't wait for this next star shit to be awful.
That are behind us. This is part of
Already
our
blaming the closed
system.
captioning.
It was requested by John Fetterman to help him process the questions that we are asking him tonight, and approved by both campaigns, and both candidates can't see the monitors.
One of the screens will show only the questions being asked tonight. The second screen will caption the questions and responses from Mehmet Oz. We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced program.
And just a note, for those of you using closed captioning at home, the captions you see are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Here we go.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show.
Chewing a little slower.
He's done that during his campaign about lying.
Shut up about good night.
Our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the...
So, shut up about good night, he tells his chat. Now he's chewing his fingernails. Yeah, it gets better. It does.
Room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman. And
You want to hear that again? Want to do a little slow-mo there? Where are we at? 5:32:13. Let's do a little slow-mo. Watch Hasan's face and hear the choice word he says at the end of this.
For all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a business.
Remember, though, Fetterman did good. That's weird. I looked at Hasan's Twitter feed. I didn't see anything about, Fetterman didn't do so hot. Just a couple of retweets about Oz. Is that weird? But I was told by, the local newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, I was told that Fetterman won. Odd. Weird that a lefty that's cheering for Fetterman like Hasan there and his audience, isn't that strange? Weird. Good reaction there by Hasan, though. Let's keep going. Oh, it gets better.
Man and television personality.
Oh,
but this
no.
is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
Oh, no.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring
we don't really need to
stability,
hear Oz.
balance, all the things that you want to see because you've been telling John Fetterman, unfortunately, would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, gentlemen, on to the economy. Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our Nexstar Emerson College The Hill poll shows the economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters.
Looks like he's enthusiastic here.
39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation crisis. But voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr.
All right, here we go,
I will
Fetterman.
allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically
he
said
just
you
left,
have
right?
not
Okay,
raised
thank you.
taxes and that you want to raise
Thank
taxes
you,
on
Dat
Americans.
Philgood.
How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Ms.
What? Yeah, that was my reaction to Hasan. What? Oh, man. Who? What? Basically, if you didn't watch this debate live, Dr. Oz made an accusation. He said, Fetterman wants to raise your taxes but didn't pay his taxes. And Fetterman's response, and I'm going to say it without all of his stumbling and mush mouth, he said, that's 17 years ago. It helped students pay. What? Looks like he's crushing it, right?
Mr. Fetterman,
What?
your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the
at
Biden
that face.
administration
He knows.
overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation. Right now because it's a tax on working families. And Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions. We must push back against corporate greed. We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well too. We also be able to make more in Pennsylvania and make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed, or somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal to his comment.
Of houses, the irony is the topic that we should be debating.
He's not looking.
Mr. Fetterman,
from his own inlays from a dollar.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue on. We'll continue on with a follow-up question to you, Mr. Oz.
He's not.
This one
I'm gonna
is
be
just
honest.
for
He's
you.
not looking good.
You tweeted in August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I thought he won.
I'm supportive of reducing tax. Will say, I'm not going on.
I didn't see his son's
from
tweets.
Pennsylvania.
Wilkes-Barre Times leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations." How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah. Exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never make that choice to fight for families here in Pennsylvania. He has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. He has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania. We must push back. Inflation is...
That's exactly right, Aftershock, right? This is why I'm doing this. Do I really give a shit about Hasan and I'm really important? Not really, but it's the best example I could find of when it's right in your face, when you're watching someone's immediate reaction. This isn't, okay, the debate's over, now Hasan's going to tweet his reaction to the debate. You saw what Hasan tweeted. He didn't tweet, wow, this looks really bad. He put a bunch of comments about how Oz sucks, basically, and that was that. That's why it's important. This is the gaslighting bullshit. And I picked two people, one of which was wearing a Fetterman shirt, one of which in Hasan is the biggest left-wing streamer, to show you that both were cheering for Fetterman. That's who I picked. I didn't pick Aftershock, who doesn't like Fetterman, that's like, oh my God, this is terrible. I picked Fetterman fans. And you're getting to see their reaction. But if you didn't watch the debate and you just picked up your copy of the Philadelphia Inquirer or the New York Times or tuned in to MSNBC or CNN, you would think, oh, Fetterman did well and everyone were bigots that thought otherwise. Let's go through some more.
It's hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania, states followed suit.
I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at 7 for anybody. Imagine and every pay trying with 10 gigantic mansions, has unwilling to talk about a willing wage for anybody. Imagine a single mom trying with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living.
Is that the face of a Fetterman supporter that thinks that he's crushing this debate? Is that what that looks like? I mean, all joking aside, it's funny. They're literally putting someone who should be in rehab. They don't give a shit. They're pushing him through the finish line. They might win. That's how far our system has fallen. That this guy, that in real time you watch people that are huge supporters of his act like this. And yet you're being gaslit that this didn't happen. Didn't happen. Now listen, I don't fault Hasan if his conclusion at the end of this is like, look, Fetterman bombed, obviously, but I still have to vote for him or suggest voting for him because Republicans are so bad. It's bullshit. It proves that they'll take any garbage, but I already explained that position. But the reason I'm pointing this out is to debunk the bullshit gaslighting lie that Fetterman did well and only bigots thought elsewise. Just a bunch of MAGA, Trump-supporting insurrectionists who hate people with disabilities. They're the only ones that think that Fetterman didn't do well. That's bullshit. Everybody knows. And yet you're being gaslit again. Let's keep going.
Wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up
Notice
for
his
you,
chat.
Mr.
This is
Fetterman.
painful.
What do
This
you
hurts.
say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
No, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't afford to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning
Those are
to you.
words.
Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with than that. And there are many ways to achieve that. But a few months ago, and he was telling me how
Watch his
hard it was to live
face.
on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that. But John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents.
Someone
He's
should
not
clip
really
this shit. This is
cognizant
gold.
Of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. Thankfully, we have a
There we go.
solution. And John, you didn't
Hassan
answer
looks
the
like a guy
question.
who
You
thinks-
can't put businesses
thinks
out
he's
of,
doing well.
We
Fetterman's
have
doing
one of the
well.
richest students to take a plan that works, and it's
Had any answer that he actually had about?
I want to give you, Mr. Fetterman, a 15-second
Here we
follow-up
go.
to what he just said about you.
No, again, it's remarkable. He hasn't really had any answer that he actually had about that in his. He doesn't want to talk about having somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive. Again,
And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians?
Bro, they're
that-
gonna stroke is also slowing him down, but by making a fucking face. They're gonna.
again,
Here we go.
And I want
Let's
to
see
come
what he
back to you
says.
now, Mr. Oz,
Ready?
for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians?
Bro, they're
that
gonna
just
cook
spoke
him,
about
okay? They're gonna cook him. That's why I'm making a fucking face. They're gonna cut him and say that he can't even speak.
I don't think you should have to survive.
He's obviously nervous. The stroke is also slowing him down, but it's like it does not look good. It does not look good at all. He's trying to talk off the cuff. He already shut the fuck up! Fuck you! The fucking idiot! I'm Ukrainian. From what I've heard, you don't understand what the Ukrainians want. Shut the fuck up! Shut up! Stop using your $3 on essays in the TTS. Go buy a fucking howitzer missile.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal.
Sounds happy.
Motherfucker's like, my father is being bombed by the fucking insane Russians right now with a fucking suicide drone. But
People giving him grief about Ukraine. We'll skip over this, but he's being honest right now. Is he? I mean, he is in this context, but what did he tweet out? That's the thing. It's easy to be honest with your facial expressions, with your body language, with your words in real time. But what's it going to morph into? But you're right. At least he's saying that's why you watch in real time. Hey, you're right, Aftershock. What's he supposed to say? Exactly. They're all in on the grift. Did you see his son out there today going, wow, people are trying to gaslight you that Fetterman didn't do that bad. That's bullshit. He's not saying that. Let's keep going.
But I used a $3.
From the federal government, I want with my opponent on the delivery voter in Pennsylvania. I've got
Mr. Fetterman.
of every woman in Pennsylvania and your doctor for Roe.
Like, this is the best answer he's given so far, but it's like he
That
can't.
is left up to the states.
He can't
Now,
formulate
Republican
complex
Senator Lindsey Graham
sentences.
has introduced a federal bill
It's
to
because
ban
he's nervous,
abortion
most
after
likely.
15
I don't think
weeks.
it's
I
like
know that you've
cognitive
been
abilities
asked
have
about
diminished or
this
anything, but it's just
before.
like it.
If the vote were held today, you were elected.
30 seconds. I'll give you a dire is if it isn't working. And on the stage
Verification.
that violate, not believe that an abortion and
He stated your belief that abortion should be safe.
It's the law of the land for the choice belief.
once again he's been
Debate now.
It's the simple.
Want to get to the
We
frag
must
stuff?
continue on. They can get one. And
America.
all right, thank you.
Usual questions. There will be this note from your you pledge tonight.
Debate.
Release those full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency?
Oh, it's
you
over.
have 60 seconds.
No.
It's over,
to
he
me, for
says.
transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign and I've been very transparent about being very open about the fact we're in use captioning. And I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up. I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my doctor all believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting.
He had to testify in front of Congress because he lied.
All the information, dangerous one. He believes you should
An asshole. That's why they have no medicine in Turkey, right? Where you're from, you fucking piece of shit.
Even Joe Biden called John
from promoting those products. You have 30 seconds.
I know perfectly. Go ahead. Here, John, you'll have
You have socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine.
Bernie Sanders. You know, 3 years ago, he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy." You know what?
What is
Why
going
don't you
on?
pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because
We're just going to skip to
Terrible
the
answer from John.
Dennis, that was dishonest. He explicitly supported socialized
Mr. Oz,
medicine.
we have a
Bernie
lot
Sanders.
of topics to get to. I think we've did this. Lisa, you go ahead.
We are going to move on to
That
the
was a
next
terrible
topic,
answer
and this
from
has
John
come up
Fetterman,
earlier,
too.
and that is the issue of Mr. Oz. A video posted freedom to frack.
For this, I bill fracking as the board.
Let's get to the fracking
in
part.
fact, Pennsylvania,
and then
for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line my entire career. I believe Democrats.
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question, which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, I don't support fracking
this is
at
the
all.
worst part.
I
The
never
follow-up
have.
question is
But
the worst
earlier
part of
this
this
month,
debate.
You told
Let's
an
see how
interviewer,
Hasan
quote,
likes it.
I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States. So, Mr. Fetterman, please explain your changing
Look at the chat.
position
Oh,
in
no, it's
60
over.
seconds.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical, and we can't be held, ransom to somebody like Russia. I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support
just look at
fracking.
his son.
Never
He's
taken any
beat
money
down,
from
man.
their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's not just a statement you read. There are multiple. There's pictures of him signing a moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John Fetterman over and over again took positions against energy.
We have a lot of topics.
That right there, that's the reality of this debate. Right there. There's your biggest left-wing Twitch streamer in real time. That sums up this debate. Head on the table. He knows. He knows. He knows. Everybody that watched knows. And yet, mainstream outlet after mainstream outlet is gaslighting you that John Fetterman did good. Well, he doesn't care. Of course he doesn't care. But this isn't about Hasan still not going to support Dr. Oz and still supporting Fetterman. What it's about is when you see even the biggest left-wing shills in real time react to how bad this debate was, it is undeniable that they all know. And yet, we will be gaslit that no, he did pretty good. Any senator that wins PA is going to have to support fracking for the jobs, right? It's definitely, you wouldn't necessarily have to, but it's definitely going to be a huge boost. Think of it this way. I talked about this in my review last night, right? There are people that have concerns that are sort of moderate people. There are 40% of people on both sides, the vote's already locked in. So you're going for the other 20%. And some of those people, they're going to be moderate or independent on issues. So, for example, you might have someone that's like, well, I'm for fracking. I think the lockdowns were bad, which Fetterman was part of. I think that inflation's bad, which I blame Democrats for. But I have significant questions on abortion. And so Dr. Oz has to come out and be like, I think that the U.S. government, federal government, should have nothing to say on abortion. It should be up to the states and to the... So I don't have a vote on it. Right? Fracking, right? You might be someone that's like, look, my husband works in the fracking industry here in Pennsylvania, but I also think that Oz and the Republicans are too bad on abortion. So Fetterman has to be like, no, I support fracking. So that's sort of what's going on here. But now I'm going to skip to the end to a timestamp that I had that's going to some reaction from Hasan here. Again, you can go to Hasan's feed. You can watch the whole thing if you like. I'm not going to rip the whole feed. I just wanted to see reactions on some of those key points. Looks like a guy happy with the debate, right?
Almost 30% said they're less likely to vote for him. That's crazy. And also, this is before the debate, not after. You guys are stupid. This is before the debate. No, 50% said more likely to support him because they're saying like they too. 15% probably have like some level of illness in a similar and clearly communicating a message in the most cogent, coherent way you could possibly deliver it. He is a fucking snake oil salesman, and he sold the greatest snake oil of all time tonight. Conservatism. And he actually didn't just go full conservative, full Trumpian conservative. If you noticed, he very carefully and very deliberately crafted his narrative in the most like centrist way possible. I care about uniting the country. He didn't go Doug Mastriano. He distanced himself from Doug Mastriano, and he actually made it seem like he was here for the Pennsylvanian suburbs. He only cared about the crime thing because he knows white suburban Pennsylvanians are fucking terrified of Philadelphia. They're terrified of black people, and they're...
You see the racism of Hasan come out here. It's not that they actually care about crime. It's they're racist. They care about black people. But even here, I thought this was important for you to see because this is him speaking on how Oz did. He's like, Oz came off... Yeah, he's... And you see this. You could see that people on the left understood that Oz was not that bad because they're like, well, he was a TV person. That's them making excuses for why he sounded pretty good. Well, he was a TV person. So then when the other narrative coming from them is Dr. Oz sounded horrible, that's bullshit. I give him a B minus to a B, but Hasan knows.
They're terrified of the crime wave that's happening in Pennsylvania across the board. When you look at the actual facts, when you look at the actual evidence, the crime wave is greatly overblown by mainstream media. Unfortunately, Fetterman also could not answer with the clarity that the situation deserved. Okay? Unironically, Fetterman did 10 times better than I could have done. Yeah, motherfucker, no one's voting for you. You're not a politician. What the fuck? No one thinks about it that way. You don't go, oh man, I know that like the Lakers lost by 40, but you know, LeBron played 1,000 times better than I could. Yeah, no shit. The
Fair
fuck
point.
do you mean? Anyway. Fetterman should have never done this debate. The bad PR from avoiding the debate would have been far, far, far less than damaging than this debate will be. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, this is sad, but you have to admit how ridiculously funny the situation is. No, man, it's not funny. It's not funny at all to me, okay? You get like a decent fucking candidate that is a shoo-in, okay? That is like born and bred Pennsylvanian, 6'8", looking like a wrestler Andy, okay? Who literally is like, I live across the street from a fracking operation. Like, you know what I mean? Who has put his life on the line to defend his small town originally in Braddock. Like, that's real. All that shit is real. He has the backing. He has the on-the-ground support. And then he gets he becomes a stroke victim and is incapacitated right before the fucking campaign. It is literally like...
But wait a minute. Didn't Hasan say in that clip we just saw, it was just nerves. It's not cognitive. Isn't that what Hasan said? Now he's saying it's tragic. He was a stroke victim. That's the explanation here. What's up, D-Weezy? Weird. Finish this up.
It is the most tragicomic, okay? Like the most tragic situation that you could ever get to. Like the dark humor in it would be laughable if you were to think about it like you're not someone who will be impacted by those decisions. Yeah, it's funny if you're living in like fucking Iceland or some shit. Do I think he has a shot? Yes. Here's the thing, okay? There are truths to what you guys have said about not everybody watching debates and whatever. People don't watch debates. They watch highlights. They watch what the media covers. Now, more importantly than media coverage, however, is on-the-ground door knocking, okay? And John Fetterman is so fucking viciously Pennsylvania that he has been going balls to the fucking wall on the ground. He's done rallies. He's rallying everywhere. He is out there working day in, day out. Okay?
Well, he's not.
So if his door knocking operation helps him, then maybe he can overcome the sea of negative attacks that are going to come his way in Pennsylvania.
The media, they'll put clips out. Not everyone watches. By the way, it's funny, if you listen to Hasan enough, one of the things I think is funny, he's classically one of these people that thinks that although almost every institution is parroting sort of the same sorts of shit he says, that they're all out to get him. The media's out to get us, right? You heard him saying that in a clip earlier. The damn media, it's because they're blowing up the crime in Philly. It's the media, the way they're covering it. Right. Remember, if 100%'s not on their narrative, that's not good enough. 99%'s not enough. Now, there's two left-wing streamers that watched in real time. Both of them seem to realize the obvious fact that Fetterman did horribly. But go to Twitter. Turn on MSNBC. Turn on CNN. That's not the narrative you're getting. And Hasan gives the game away here. Most people don't watch the debate. They just watch the media coverage of it. Yep. Now, couple things that I want to talk about outside of that. So again, what is the importance of this? It is to show how terrible Fetterman is and that he's not qualified to be a candidate. The message isn't for me and probably not for you. Hasan's right about that. But he's wrong when he says that and implies, therefore, this debate might not have an impact. The message is for people that haven't made up their mind. And those people, if they watch this debate, if they are any kind of objective, are going to be like, this guy can't be senator. He can't do it. That's what's important. The left was always going to be, again, it didn't matter how bad he was. They don't give a shit. And that's fine. I give them a little credit by saying, if it was Hillary Clinton running against Fetterman, I'd probably vote for Fetterman, even if he put this performance in the debate. I don't know. But the fact that we had a journalist that came out that said he seemed off and she was attacked by Fetterman's wife and by a bunch of other people that said, how dare she say that? Fetterman's fine. The fact that Fetterman and his people lied to us all through this campaign saying he was good. The fact that there was early voting before people had a chance to see just how damaged he is. All of it horrific. And the fact that they're gaslighting us now. If they're lying to you about something this blatant, what are they not going to lie to you about? Okay, the Philadelphia Inquirer said that Fetterman won this debate. Now let's hear what they have to say on vaccine mandates. I'm sure they're straight down the middle journalists telling it like it is, right? Bullshit. Never trust them on anything. There is a segment of people, and I'm the only person that said this. Mark this down, clip it. We're 2 hours and 2 minutes in to the debate. 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds. I'll wait until we get to the 30 seconds. Ready? Clip this part. Here we go. If Fetterman loses, the people that are telling you that he did good in this debate and that it was courageous and we have to be compassionate and Dr. Oz was a bully and you're a bigot if you're an ableist, if you say that Fetterman didn't do well, 90% of those people, if Fetterman loses, all of a sudden will lose their compassion. All of a sudden, instead of defending the courageous man that is John Fetterman, they're going to start pointing fingers. And they're going to say, this man had that stroke before the primaries were voted for. And he should have stepped down then. And if it ends up that Pennsylvania is the swing state that ends up being 51 for Republicans and 49, they will go insane on John Fetterman. Count on it. Put it in the bank. Guaranteed. And I haven't heard anyone else say that. I'm telling you that's exactly what will happen. All of a sudden their compassion and, oh, he did great and it's, it's a great thing. They'll say, he knew he had problems. Why didn't he drop out and leave another Democrat? Wait and see. It's coming if he loses. If Fetterman wins, I believe there is a 95% chance that while Tom Wolf is still governor, he will withdraw, and then Tom Wolf will get to appoint the senator, who may be Fetterman's wife. My friend thinks it'll be Fetterman's wife. I think that would be crazy, but we'll see. He ain't gonna finish out 6. And to talk just a little about this, I don't know shit about strokes. I don't. But I've seen some doctors say today that normally the bulk of your healing occurs within the first 6 months. And we're kind of beyond that point. And so I saw a doctor on CNN saying, we don't know how much better it'll get. Everyone on the left's like, well, he'll get better. Where's the proof? And let me be quite clear. I hope he gets better. I don't like John Fetterman. I don't wish anyone to suffer from any sort of illness. I hope he loses and gets the help he deserves and makes a full recovery. That's what I hope happens. I think it's despicable that his friends and family and the people around him didn't tell him, take time off for your health. Way back in the primaries, leave another Democrat fill in. You're not up to this. Your health isn't up to us. It's despicable that they're shoving him out there. The man was clearly nervous, regardless if you hate him or not. Clearly nervous, clearly not in medical condition to be out there. And there he was. It's terrible. No loved one there to pull him aside and say, no more. Despicable. Speaking of, someone mentioned Biden, there's another person. Pierre was asked today, the press secretary, what's Biden think of Fetterman's performance? What do you think Biden thought? How do you think Biden thought Fetterman did? Great. I mean, the jokes write themselves, right? Right. I'm sure. Oh, my goodness. I'm sure that Joe Biden, with his cognitive issues, looked at this debate and said, looks great. Here, you don't believe me? Here's John Pierre. Let's hear what she has to say about.
Just a really quick follow-up to Zeke's question. Given the amount of time that the president has spent with Fetterman and the conversation that is happening today in the wake of last night's debate performance, does the president have any concerns about, has he ever raised, either in a conversation with you that you've been a part of or with others here at the White House, any concerns about his health?
So I'll say this, in personal conversations that the president has had with the lieutenant governor, the president has found him to be impressive, incredibly bright and talented person who's just as capable as always to carry out his office, the duties of his office, as we know he is lieutenant governor currently, and has great ability and heartfelt concern for the people of the Commonwealth. And that is what the president has observed himself. That is, as is the case before and is the case today. And he respects the courage and the honesty that he sees from the lieutenant governor, that he's experienced in their conversation and their relationship over time. And we have of course, as relates to your question about his health, seen the same comments from independent medical experts that you all have noted, and that the improving symptoms he has to do with the speech and hearing, not all with cognitive function. So again, he thinks that he looks forward to working with the lieutenant governor in the future, and sees him as an authentic individual who is fighting every day for the middle class, and finds him incredibly impressive.
He's impressive after that last night. There you have it, Joe Biden. He's impressed. Good. And nice. I thought there was another clip. Let's see if I can find it. Someone asked me how, like I said, I didn't see all of every debate I've seen on these swing states, Republicans have cleaned up every single time. Looks like Tudor Dixon cleaned up. Looks like Lee Zeldin cleaned up. Wait, here's the chat for comfy.stream. If you guys want to head over there, we can put it there so you can see the chat for there as well. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to try that out today. Now, the big attack that's being issued that I think is worth responding to, the Democrat strategy. What did I tell you their strategy? Go back to last night. Am I amazing or what? I accurately told you exactly what today would look like. I said, first they would say Fetterman did pretty good. Then they would say you're a bigot if you call out his cognitive issues. Then they would find one clip to say this is why Oz is evil. And then the next step is they'll just move on from the debate. That's exactly what's happened. They said Fetterman did pretty good. You had the Philadelphia Inquirer and all these places that came out. Oh, he did impressive. It was great. Then you had a bunch of people say it was courageous and Dr. Oz was a bully and how dare he come out and people were bigots and I know, so I had a stroke and how dare you. That's step 2. Step 3 is where we're at now, where they're like, Dr. Oz says that your local alderman should be deciding your medical. Remember, when you go in to talk to your gyno, your local alderman will be there. Your school board president will be there. That's number 3. And then number 4 will be to just move on from this debate. That'll be it. That's exactly what's happening on. So the attack is, and I could go back and play the clip if you all want, but basically, the question about abortion that was asked directly to Dr. Oz was, Lindsey Graham put forth this bill that federally would be voted on that says federally it bans abortions after 15 weeks with some extra. Would you sign that bill if you were there to sign it today? And Oz hemmed and hawed and said, basically he was then asked to clarify and he said definitively, I would not sign the bill. I do not think it is the purview of the federal government to make these decisions. I think it's more of local communities, women and their doctors to make these decisions. In other words, he's saying states' rights. That's what he's saying. When he says local community, that's what he's talking about. That each state is different and that they might have different opinions on abortion, and I think it should be up to them. Now, I watched someone in a Cuomo town hall forum where it was a Democrat that said, they said, how did you feel about the debate? And she said, the one thing about Oz was I was very concerned that he would sign on to this abortion bill, but my fears on that have been assuaged. And Cuomo was like, so you're going to vote for Oz? And she's like, I don't know. This is a Democrat, registered Democrat, whose big issue is abortion. And she comes out thinking, 50-50 Oz or Fetterman. That's devastating for Fetterman. But she didn't say, my God, he wants my local alderman to be involved in my abortion. That's not what she said. Because it is understood to anyone who watched the debate live, that's not what was being said. That is, you remember when IRI, I'm really important, and Hasan said, they'll have to spin this. That's what they're talking about. That's what the spin is. It's bullshit. They're being dishonest. No, Dr. Oz didn't say that your local town committee or your school board committee or your alderman or etc. should be involved in your abortion decision. Dr. Oz said it should not be the role of the federal government. It should be a state's issue. Your local communities all look different. You should have a vote on what you want. That's what he's talking about. Period. End of story. And, of course, the dishonest media that wants to cover up, because they're not media members, they're propagandists. They want to cover up how bad Fetterman did, so this is the narrative that they're pushing, just like I said they would do. That's exactly what's going on. Furthermore, the one who wants the government more involved is Fetterman, who actually wants a bill that not only would you would say, well, that bill says that you should be allowed to do what you want, so that's not the government being involved. But he also wants your tax dollars to go to funding abortions. That's the federal government getting involved. The other thing is this. I've argued with dishonest person after dishonest person in my chat, on my video, that have told me over and over it is not the position of the Democratic Party to support abortions up until the moment of birth. He said people have told me that's disingenuous. That's not their policy. What are the attacks on what Fetterman said? They say, oh, he said he wants local governments involved. We don't think that government should be involved. Your body, your choice. It's between you and a doctor. Can someone tell me what the logical implication of that is? If there shall be no laws from any government regarding your body and your choice of abortion, and it is strictly up to you and your doctor, what's the implications there? If someone wants to have a 38-week abortion, are they allowed? Anyone? If there are no laws restricting it, does that mean that 38-week abortion should be allowed? Yes, that is what it means. That is the official position of everyone that's criticizing Dr. Oz right now. That has always been their position. That was Chuck Schumer's position when he was asked when the Dobson decision was first leaked. That is what the Biden administration has said repeatedly. They refuse to talk specifics. They think it should be between a woman and her doctor. That's another way of saying there should be no law that says that you're allowed to intervene. That there should be no law that says, okay, after 35 weeks, you can't. That's against a woman's right to choose. If a woman chooses at 38 weeks pregnant to have the abortion and the doctor says, yes, we'll go ahead with it, that's their choice. No law should stop that. Now, that position, regardless of what you think of abortion, that position is more hated than the Republican position of even no abortions after a heartbeat. Different question, peer review, right? Almost everyone is okay for abortion in circumstances like the woman's life's in jeopardy, the baby's stillborn, things like that. That's not what we're talking about. That doesn't answer whether or not there should be any limitations legally on abortion. And the answer that's given makes no sense, because the answer that's given is like, well, it would never happen. Great, then why not have the law? Right? If your argument is no one would ever have an abortion after 30 weeks, okay, with exceptions of the woman's life in danger, et cetera, okay, well then, pass the law, no problem, right? No, that is not the argument that's being made, though, Pisco, is it? That's not the argument that they're making. The attack on Dr. Oz is, and if you would like, if you don't believe me, which you probably won't because you're bad faith, but the attack is, oh, he thinks that government should have some regulation. Abortion should be between a woman and her doctor. You can't say, and oh, by the way, I also think that we should go back to Roe v. Wade and we should have laws that say, well, it's not just between a woman and her doctor. States have the right to decide these things. You could say it's inconsistent from Roe v. Wade, but that's the way they're spinning it. In fact, Dr. Oz's position is, if anyone should be upset at Dr. Oz's position, it would be the pro-life people. Because Dr. Oz is basically saying, I should have no say whatsoever in my capacity as senator over the issue of abortion. I should have no say over it. If I think it should be up to the states, if this state of Pennsylvania decides to allow abortions up until 25 weeks, okay. But I'm not voting for a federal law that restricts abortion access. Not doing it. That should upset the pro-life people more than the pro-choice. But the dishonest, because Fetterman did so bad, they have no choice but to try to spin something. And again, Hasan gives the game away there. He says, Oz doesn't sound, he sounds like a centrist. That's why I don't like Oz. Exactly. So just saying like, Oz is this radical, crazy, extreme person that wants to disband the FBI. No, that's me. I want to disband the FBI. Dr. Oz doesn't. That's one of the reasons I don't like Dr. Oz. Why I didn't support him in the primary. He doesn't talk about issues like corruption like that. So if they can't spin that shit like, well, he's this insurrectionist like they're trying to do with Doug Mastriano, well, they got to find some attack because the debate, if you just leave it stand for itself, Fetterman got crushed objectively. So where's their area of attack? Okay. Well, they can't talk shit about the economy. They can't talk shit about crime. They can't talk shit about the border. They're getting crushed on all those issues. They can't talk shit about like all the stuff with education and kids because all polling shows, yeah, people are sick and tired of the sexualization of children and stuff like that. They can't talk lockdowns and stuff like that, at least not in this debate, because Tom Wolf's administration, which Fetterman was lieutenant governor, supported all those lockdowns. So what's their issue? Okay, abortion. Great, that's where we could make hay. So that's what they're trying to do. And they're being dishonest. They're making it seem as if there's something unique about what Dr. Oz is saying, that he wants government involved in your abortion decisions. But then when you talk to Pisco, he's like, well, all the Democrats want a return to Roe v. Wade, which is also government involved in your abortion decisions. Because Roe v. Wade said there has to be bare minimum access to abortion, but states are allowed to make laws that restrict abortions after certain limits. Okay. That's also government being involved in abortions. So that's the attack. And they can't, I don't mind if you're just honest. I don't. If you're a Democrat and you're like, listen, I feel that we should allow unlimited abortions up until 15 weeks. I think we should allow for special circumstances up to 25 weeks. And then in incredibly rare circumstances where the woman's life's in danger or the baby's going to be born with a terminal issue, then we should allow as long as necessary for those. But I find that Republicans are too restrictive. Some of them want to eliminate even the morning after pill. That's too much. That's a fair attack. Saying your body, your choice, they want the government involved. Okay, the implications of that is you're saying you don't want the government involved. That it is that woman's body and it is her total choice, which means if she chooses to have an abortion at 38 weeks, so be it. The government does not have the right to restrict that. So their attack is disingenuous. Because they believe that always woman's body, always her choice, or second, they're being disingenuous because they know that they also believe that there are times when it's not just a woman's body, a woman's choice. But that doesn't make for a catchy campaign slogan, does it? Okay, if I don't give the NCAP position, then I'm giving the position that they think that there is. So then the debate becomes, oh, well, this Lindsey Graham bill says 15 weeks, but really we think 23 weeks. Well, that's hardly your handmaiden's tale and we're not. That's how they're spinning it. Your daughter, I've seen the ads. The police come and knock on the door. Ma'am, you're under arrest. You had an abortion. No. The kid's crying. The reality is the inverse of that's happening. They actually are knocking on people's houses and arresting people that are pro-life. They're doing that in front of the kids while they cry. But that was the ad that they put on. So, no, I'm sorry, Pisco. And you know this, by the way. You're being a shithead here. You are. You know this is exactly what their message is. You know it. And you're pretending, well, I don't think they literally mean that. Bullshit. We all know that's what they're doing. What should the punishment be for doctors and mothers that have abortions? I assume you mean if they have abortions that are not legal, because each state, right now, the situation would be each state would say, by the way, I have no problem if there are the votes to pass an amendment on abortion that says there should be abortion up to 15 weeks, that's pass the fucking amendment. If that's what people decide. It's one of these issues that I think that the reasonable positions of it, there are people making arguments on both sides. And I'll argue with pro-life people on this. I will, right? You could be incredibly good faith and really worried about people's bodily autonomy. I'm worried about bodily autonomy. I hated the fucking vax mandates. One of the reasons was because I'm someone who cares about liberty. So I understand the gut feeling to say, wait a minute, we don't want the government involved in our medical decisions. I get that, right? But the inverse of that is, well, if this is a life, it's a life. It's not just a medical decision between one woman and a doctor. There's a life. And that life deserves rights as well. So it's both sides have arguments that I believe they could legitimately believe and think are important. I get that. I tend to think that my rights to liberty are allowed to be curtailed when it comes to the extinguishment of another's life. And so if you think that this is a human life, at that point, your liberty is less important because the liberty to not be killed is more important. But ultimately, I would be willing to hear questions of abortions, of early term abortions and things like that. But I don't think you're an evil person if you're like, I think abortion should be allowed up to 15 weeks. I think it's complicated. And I understand why people are passionate on both sides. And it's one of those answers that's like, it has to do with philosophy and religion and things of that nature. When is a life a life? When is it, it's not just that. It's a little more complicated, which I've changed my position. It's not just when is it a life. It is do we consider it a human life, right? Once it's there, it seems immoral to extinguish it. Maybe that's conception. Maybe it is. Now, the positions of the radical, like people that have been on here, like Keyline Platypus, who says, I'm for abortions up until the day of birth. I don't give a shit. That's one of the most grotesque positions I've ever heard. It's repugnant. It should be condemned in the strongest possible words. You shouldn't even sit in a bus with that person. You shouldn't share a meal with that person. It's fucking disgusting. But I don't feel that way about someone that's like, hey, I think we should have access to abortions and I don't feel that way. I think that even if I disagree with people on that, I understand where they're coming from. So the question is then, those that engage in practices outside the purview of whatever the law would be. So if we say you can't have abortions after 20 weeks and a doctor and a woman do it, what should the punishment be? I think the punishment should be basically almost solely directed at the doctor. They're the ones providing the treatment. I think most of the time when it's incumbent on the doctor to understand that law and to understand when they're performing something that they're not allowed. And so I don't think there should be much. I also don't believe in retroactive punishment. I think that that's nonsense. Why do I value human life? Why not? What else is there? If you think that it's killing a life, wouldn't it be potential murder charges for the doctor? Potentially. What do you think Kermit got? The most prolific serial killer in the country was Kermit Gosnell. Abortion doctor, killed babies after they were born, ripped them apart limb from limb, third trimester abortions, hundreds upon hundreds. Horror show. But that's what this becomes, right? There's this you remember Ellen DeGeneres, the person I debated that put Molly up their ass? I'm not saying that as like some cheap joke. That's literally what they told me. Kept calling me a rapist, said I raped my wife to have a child, things like that. So I just blocked them, fucking done with them. But Aftershock sent me a post showing that person was telling people, oh, Rob's for forcing rape victims to have babies. And so, fuck him. Now, what happened was he started screaming I was a rapist before I had a chance to answer what my position was. My position was this. I already believe that there should be some form of early abortion allowed. That certainly would be the case for a rape victim. I think that whatever we settle on, what the law would be that allow that clearly the law should be extended in the case of someone that's a rape victim. But I still don't think that a rape victim would be justified if they had access to get an abortion for deciding on the delivery day, okay, now I want an abortion. Because as heinous as rape is, we shouldn't say that we could exterminate this human life because of that. Now, I think if someone could prove tragically that they were raped and then were held captive or something and did not have access to some sort of medical facility, or perhaps it was a child that was raped and didn't know how to tell someone and then found that, once their parents found out at 35 weeks, those would be unique discussions that we should have unique panels for to decide whether or not exemptions were allowed in those specific cases. But these are difficult questions without easy answers on all sides of the debate. But it's some gotcha that's thrown around like this is the end all be all. Meanwhile, I think abortion's an issue that's used to drive a wedge. They could continue to fuck us over corruptly, fuck us over with lockdowns, economically, etc. And side A says pro-life and side B says pro-choice. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean? And it works because people are so passionate about it. And so that's why Pisco could say, well, it's just slogans. It's just slogans. Right. That's literally the attack they're making right now to excuse John Fetterman's terrible debate performance, that Dr. Oz wants aldermans in the fucking hospital room. It's nonsense. We all know it. It's not just slogans. It's going to be Handmaid's Tale with these damn Republicans. Women will be for, no, that's not what's being said. Everyone knows it. Birth control pill, I'm totally cool with. Morning after pill, I'm fine with. It's not that you're being disingenuous by agreeing with me. That's not what's happening. You're saying this is just slogans and no one really believes it. But what I'm saying the disingenuous nature of is how corrupt that is. You're not calling it out. Yeah, absolutely. All these Democrats making these attacks and using these slogans are full of shit. You know that they're using it and trying to convince people that don't know otherwise. They want people to believe. To them, it's not just slogans. To them, it's like, we want the suburban mother to believe Dr. Oz is going to force some local politician into her bedroom, into her hospital to say, no, you have to have the baby. You have to do this. You have to do that. And that's bullshit. And that they want that same woman to believe, we believe it should totally be up to you and totally up to your doctor. And you know that's not true. That's not what they believe. It is bullshit. That's why I'm saying that it's bad faith. Now, I'll be wrapping up here soon. Oh, yeah, there's the comfy chat on here. There you go. Make it a little bigger, huh? Thank you, Elmo. By the way, just a quick shout out before I wrap up here. Comfy.stream. If you go to comfy.stream, I'll put that in there. Start an account there. It's free to start the account. You'll find my show. I'll be live streaming. You will also now be able to find replays of my show on there once I upload them. So I'm going to start uploading. You'll notice like a place like YouTube, because I get mass reported all the time, I actually have to delete or private my YouTube videos after I do the live stream. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, comfy.stream. The thing that's great about it is free speech. It's ran by my friend BPF, who's going to make sure that it's a free speech platform for righties and lefties. And when you donate, a huge portion of that money comes to me, over 90%, and the money that doesn't goes to a platform that doesn't hate you. The last thing I wanted to talk about, what was it? There's incredible stories out there today, by the way, like the Lee Zeldin debate. Hochul, who he's running against, like, I don't understand why you think crime's such a big deal. Terrible. Slate magazine. Actually, John Fetterman's debate performance was fine. Thanks, Slate. It's surreal. Biden thought it was impressive. You know, one of the stories, I mentioned this briefly, but one of the stories that I think is worth talking about, and I'm glad Pisco's here because it's something that he was so horrible on this topic. Justice Alito came out and said, listen, the reason that they leaked the Supreme Court decision was because they wanted us to, justices that voted for Dobson, to fear for our lives. They knew it. The Supreme Court justices knew it. The DOJ knew it. Pisco knows it. He knows that was the reason. He does. And yet Pisco was fine with them intimidating the justices outside their homes, even after an assassination attempt. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we could arrest those people. You could be damn sure if it was people outside of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's home because there was an improper leak that he would have thought differently. But I guess that's okay. By the way, how's that investigation into leaker coming? Anyone know? Oh, well, we live in a system where Merrick Garland can't be bothered to do anything about that, where Supreme Court justices fear for their lives in order to try to force them to overturn decisions. But, you know, if you're a parent at a school board meeting, watch your ass. If you went to a pro-life rally. No, I'm not saying you said it wasn't okay to stop the assassin. The reason I bring up the assassin was it's clear that not only did the justices fear for their lives, but there actual were credible assassination attempts. And yet still after that, you still supported the right of the people to be there, knowing full well that these justices would have been scared shitless for their families, knowing that that could put immense pressure on them to change their decision. But you were fine with that. Even though the law is quite clear that you can't engage in these sorts of protests that are designed to intimidate justices. You said, well, there's no proof that that's what was going on. Well, the justices felt that's what was going on. And you still might say, well, there was no proof. Right, we get it. Hashtag it's different. Boy, Merrick Garland would bust your ass, though, if you went to a pro-life, you got in a shoving match at an abortion clinic. Bam, bring the fucking hammer down. You shoved someone. You're looking at 10 years, motherfucker. You went to the school board meeting and you complained about sexualization of children. Bam, FBI. We're going to use the Patriot Act. We're going to come at you. Yeah, that's all cool in the gang. That's cool. Antifa, yeah, they're not really an organization. We don't know much about them. I don't know about that. Blue-haired grandma, January 6th. Oh, snap, boy. Here we come. Now, I appreciate criminality and burdens of proof. It's amazing how it just always happens that your interpretation of criminality and burdens of proof almost exclusively align with what the FBI is doing. Again, you act like this is in a vacuum. We now know that the FBI used unverified opposition research paid for by Hillary Clinton, sourced by a Russian national who was accused and investigated for being a Russian spy, that spread disinformation that wasn't true, that the FBI took, paid that individual, and then didn't verify the information in order to spy on Trump's team. And you're just like, yeah, I guess that's a little bad, but what can we do about it? Anyways, on to trusting the FBI when they're making these charging decisions on school board parents and people, pro-life people at, abortion clinics. Charge that heavily. Aren't doing much investigating on the pro-life clinics that are, that are being vandalized and firebombed. Not much on that. School board parents, we're on that. You got to understand, Rob. You got to understand about charging decisions and proof and stuff like that. So, you just got to understand. They got the goods on that guy that shoved someone at the abortion clinic. They got him. And they were right. They had to look in and cooperate and try to help with those school board parents. But, assassination attempts, Supreme Court justices fearing for their lives. There's just nothing we could do. Nothing we could do. I trust the FBI. They wouldn't make bad decisions. It's funny. Isn't it weird, too, as someone who would have been at law school at the time, that somehow, me not being an expert, I was able since 2017 to point out the problems with using the dossier to get a FISA warrant, and yet I'd be amazed if I saw anything from Pisco pre-2020. Hell, even probably pre-2021, where he was like, this is terrible. The FBI, in probably the most important investigation they've ever had, at least referring to political ramifications, used unverified opposition research from a Russian to investigate someone that they were accusing of being a Russian and getting disinformation. And they paid that person and didn't even attempt to verify it before they got the FISA warrant to spy. And not one word from Pisco. The guy who wants you to believe in the credibility of the FBI and all of these strange decisions that always went harsh on Trump's people and easy as possible on Hillary's people, somehow, who's very interested in the credibility of the FBI, never had word one to say about it. And then when pressed, like the first time I talked to him, I was like, do you think the FBI should have to verify information before they use it for a FISA warrant? 8-minute response. And then I'm like, okay, that wasn't really an answer. Do you think it's like pulling teeth to get him to begrudging it? Because he knew they didn't verify it. He knew, and he didn't have a fucking problem with it. He was okay. Orange man bad. Now he'll gaslight you and he'll say, no, I didn't have social media back then and I wasn't really commenting on these sorts of things. And now that I see it, and this is what they'll always do. They'll ignore or they'll tell you that when the problem's occurring in real time that you're wrong. And then years down the road, they'll go, okay, but what can we do now? Comey's not there now, so it's over. It's over with. Rosenstein and Comey are gone. It's all solved. There you go. Didn't they pay to try to verify? You really want to go down this road, Pisco? You really do? Pisco giving you right now. Pisco is now giving you the Justin freaking defense, which is, well, actually, they tried to verify and they couldn't, and they still used the information, which is, by the way, it's just fundamentally that's worse. Not verifying is different than attempting to verify and realizing you can't and still using it. That's fundamentally worse. Trying to pay the guy, oh, you just made a bunch of claims. Can you give us proof of that? We'll give you $1 million. Nah, I don't got any proof. Oh, well, we'll use it anyways. The reason they tried to pay was because they understood the importance of verifying. So that makes it even worse that they were unable to verify. But even then, their attempts to verify did not start according to a timeline until November of 2020. They used the FISA warrant in October. They didn't start to reach out to subsources and things like that until November. That means the first time that they got the warrant, they did ask Christopher Steele, can you give us proof? They got none, and they didn't go out and attempt to independently confirm Christopher Steele's proof until after they had the initial warrant. So yes, my statement is correct. Short of saying, can you give us proof, if we consider that verification, right? So if I go to the FBI and I say, Joe Biden sniffs little kids' hair and he's getting peed on by Chinese hookers and he's selling nuclear secrets to the Chinese. And the FBI says, really, Rob? Interesting. We'll give you $1 million if you can prove that. And I go, nah, dog, I can't prove that. And they're like, okay, we'll still use that to spy on people in Biden's campaign. Would you say, well, they attempted to verify? That's an attempt. They asked you. They said they'd pay you. So that's an attempt at verification. Do you see the lawyer, Pisco? Do you see how this goes? How could they not have verified? Didn't they offer him $1 million if they could prove it? Right. And he couldn't. And they didn't try to attempt to verify the information other than just his word of mouth. What do you mean you're trying to get an understanding of my position? My position's quite evident. It's been the entire time. Haven't we talked about this numerous times? You know they never verified it. The information's bullshit. You know they didn't even attempt to verify it until they had the warrant. You know the primary subsource actually told them when they finally reached out to him because he was nervous as shit, like, uh-oh, it's on now. He's like, oh, this was just jokes, jokes, and I can't believe it was taken out of context, what Christopher Steele said. And then they went to the FISA court after hearing the primary subsource that made these claims that justified thinking Carter Page was a spy, saying, yeah, this was all taken out of context. They went to the FISA court and said, yeah, we believe he's telling the truth, but left out that he told them that it wasn't real. Imagine that. Hey, primary subsource, can you explain this? Yeah, I wouldn't trust any of that. It was all just innuendo. I can't prove any of it. I can't believe you're using that. Well, we think he's telling the truth. About what? Well, that our whole case is bullshit. We'll leave that part out. There's your FBI. They just didn't know. I'm sure it was a simple mistake. They didn't know they had to verify information before they spied on the president of the United States. They just had no clue. None. Simple mistake. Anyways, back to prosecutorial discretion and, needing burden of proof to break up, people that are intimidating Supreme Court justices after an assassination attempt. Well, the burden of proof. You think he would get tired of getting beat around on this subject, but he's still here. Next week, we could talk again about how, Rob, I'll put my glasses on for Pisco. I'll be Pisco here. Rob, it could be that the people of Martha's Vineyard, they don't have resources to take care of 40 people more than 48 hours. They just don't have the resources, the poor, struggling people. Just because they're all incredibly wealthy, perhaps their community was not frugal with their spending. Perhaps not. And so the noble people of Martha's Vineyard, these illegals would be better off in a government facility. Now, the border towns of 10,000 people where everyone's living in poverty, yeah, there's no crisis there. They should welcome in these people. No crisis there. But, maybe the Martha's Vineyard people, they just didn't have the resources. I love it. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It is great. Do I want to talk next week? Probably. I don't really want to talk when I'm having problems when I'm not at my home office with streaming. It's a thing. But maybe some next week, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, would probably be cool. You come on, we talk, Oh, I forgot another classic Pisco hit. Here's another classic one. Okay, here's what happened, Rob. So this guy, Paul Combetta, right? Paul Combetta is told in December, around there, right? He's told okay, you could go ahead and delete all this stuff now. That's what he's told. And then 4 months later, he's made aware there is a subpoena. And now you have to hand all this evidence over. And then he talks to Cheryl Mills, and then they talk about the subpoena. And then a couple days later, he talks about to Cheryl Mills, and we don't know what he talks about. And then he's heading to work one day, and he's like, oh yeah, months ago I was told to delete all this stuff. I was told. So that's what I'm going to go to work to do. And it just slipped his mind. It slipped his mind that he was supposed to comply with the subpoena, and he was made aware of the subpoena. That slipped his mind. He was like, I forgot all about the subpoena. I totally forgot. So yeah, that's reasonable. He didn't do anything wrong. If your boss tells you 6 months ago to delete something, and then it gets subpoenaed and you didn't delete it, and then you just forget, I forgot that I've been working on complying with the subpoena for a week, and I forgot. But I do remember the conversation from months ago. I do remember that. Then what can you do? What can you do about that? What can you do? What does it matter if I accept that an order was given around December? How is that relevant? Doesn't matter. Doesn't prove that order was something that was good or even lawful, but it's irrelevant to this conversation. It does not matter. In order to win this argument, you have to prove, because you already conceded the most important point. The only way your argument could fly would be to argue that Paul Combetta didn't know there was a subpoena, which you concede he obviously did. And in fact, he had talked to Cheryl Mills in that first meeting. According to you and according to the IG report, they had, I believe, if I remember it correctly, they mentioned the subpoena. So now, in order for you to win this argument, you have to argue that this dude's talking to his boss. His job is the tech guy. This is the most important, crucial thing that has ever happened in his career. We were talking about a candidate for president of the United States eventually, and someone who was the Secretary of State. His most important client as far as power, no doubt. And the most important situation as a tech guy that you could have, it is incumbent on you as the custodian of these records to comply with a congressional subpoena. He's aware of this. This is like his Super Bowl. And yet somehow he totally forgets about it. He forgets. Oh shit. I forgot, like, the most important thing that's ever happened to my career. It slipped his mind one day, but he did remember a conversation he had 4 months ago. His knowledge of the subpoena is not necessarily coextensive with his knowledge of the status of deletions. How does that logically follow? Because he knew that the records if you know there's a subpoena, the first thing you should say is, okay, all the records that I'm the custodian of, which one of these do I need to hand over? So I guess what you're saying is let's try to Steelman Pisco's argument here. He's saying, well, maybe he thought that these weren't the records that were subpoenaed. Bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. And even if that was true, that he was just mistaken, it's still a crime. If they subpoena my hard drive, and I have a letter from my wife that 6 months ago that says, Rob, delete your hard drive. We want to put new music on and stuff, right? And I don't get around to it. And the police subpoena my hard drive, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting ready to turn it over. And I'm like, I forgot to delete all that shit my wife said. But I don't think that's what was subpoenaed anyways. That's just other shit in the hard drive. So I'll go ahead and delete it. Do you think the police are going to be like, oh, well, here it is. Here's his proof that his wife told him to delete it? Or his boss, if I'm at work, whatever. They would say, look, you didn't get to make that decision. And reminder, this isn't random Joe Schmo. So my analogy isn't even good. This is a tech guy. This is one of like the 2 or 3 people that were actually hired to be able to say, these are the exact types of things that are being subpoenaed or not. He was well aware of the types of these records. So it's still not going to be justified that he just didn't know that these were the records that were subpoenaed. The timeline, what are you talking about? The timeline matters. Yes, the timeline matters in that he was well aware before he deleted this that the records were subpoenaed. That's it. End of story. He knew it. He knew the records were subpoenaed and he deleted them. Are you asking me this question, Aftershock? I can't comment on those really specifically. I'll get deleted here on Twitch. But I've said my piece on it. Again, and like this is when I talked about, I'll wrap up here. I do have to be done by 12:30, so I'll wrap up here. But this is what I talked about with this Fetterman debate, was watching the people, the real story to me is watching the people gaslight you, right? Watching them be like, oh no, Fetterman did well. That's the real story. That's why I love talking this particular topic with Pisco, right? That's why I liked, it was basically a 2-on-1 with his boy Destiny that was moderating the debate. That's why I love to just let everyone see how disingenuous they are. Yeah, I thought so, Aftershock. That's why I love doing this. Because that's what he'll sit here, he'll spend all week, he'll be researching, he'll be, well, wait a minute, maybe. The story is quite simple. It's quite simple. And to watch them claw and, well, wait, we can make sense of this, right? Like, he forgot about the subpoena, but remember the conversation 4 months ago? You got to remember the timeline. You got to remember the timeline. He was told to delete this stuff. He forgot to delete it. Then 4 months later, he was told there's a subpoena. He's talking to Cheryl Mills about the subpoena. Then he forgets about the subpoena. Then he remembers the conversation from 4 months ago. Then he deletes it. You got to remember the timeline. The timeline's important here. Well, good. Well, I didn't say you said that, Pisco. Yeah. Fetterman's performance was the worst debate performance I've ever seen. And I don't just mean at a national, it certainly was, as far as I'm aware, at the national level. But even when I judged debates of people that were just getting into it, I judged debates of people that were students that were debating for school credit that basically couldn't read. They were better than Fetterman. So I'm not saying you said that, Pisco. I'm on that. You did say all the shit I said about the protest outside Supreme Court justices' houses, the shit about the FISA warrant on Carter Page, the shit about Paul Combetta, the deleting of subpoenaed evidence. You said all that. You did. Yeah, we can hash it out too. I don't mind. I actually like talking to Pisco. At least he could formulate sentences, even if he's disingenuous. And again, I do leave room for Pisco might not be consciously disingenuous. He might just be such a partisan that any amount of corruption he's willing to accept. But it doesn't get more clear-cut than deleting subpoenaed evidence and saying, oh, I'm sorry, 4 months ago I was told to delete this shit, so even though I was aware of the subpoena, I just thought you meant different shit, so I went ahead and deleted it. Sad. Or, by the way, Pisco, well, they don't really believe the my body, my choice, it's just a slogan. Great. I'm sure you're making all kinds of comments about how disingenuous it is to do that shit then, right? All right, I'm wrapping her up here, but yeah, back to the Fetterman debate. I think that I didn't cover all the debates, and let me be clear, I have to be careful. Some of the debates I saw good portions of, but other than the Fetterman debate with Oz, I did not see the entirety. I saw a lot of the Blake Masters debate, but not the entirety. So there's always a chance that in the parts I'm biased, and maybe where I'm getting my information from is only showing the good parts. But the parts that I see in these debates, it looks, even the Warnock debate with Walker, it didn't look good. Yeah, I mean, Pisco, I have a friend that's a left-wing friend that works in a job where he goes overseas. And so he voted early, and he is not happy. Because I don't think he was aware. That's why early voting sucks. Get rid of it. It's terrible. This is the type of stuff that happens. Moderators were good. That's my take. But people on both sides, it's so easy to bitch about the moderator. And don't get me wrong, the moderators are almost always shit when it came to like the Trump debates for Hillary. It was nonsense. Or for Biden in the last debate. Like Chris Wallace, it's terrible, right? But this debate, I thought the moderators did pretty good. Both sides were complaining to some degree, so it doesn't matter if Trump did himself favors. That doesn't mean the moderation couldn't have been bad. I agree, by the way. If you go back and see what I said about that first Trump debate in 2020, I said I think Trump's going too far. I didn't think he got. I thought that it was the closest debate. I can't remember exactly. I think that I thought Trump slightly won it, but the narrative was Trump looked like a big asshole, and I could see that, and the moderation was helping facilitate that. But after that, yeah, Pisco's at least could put thoughts together, and he's willing to come on and talk. I agree, and I don't dislike Pisco as a person. I think that he's probably either bad faith or that he's such a partisan that allows him to, like, there's just, all of us know this. All of us know. Is there any doubt, like, honestly, even you, Z, is there any doubt whatsoever that if any of these situations had been reversed, if Trump's team had paid for opposition research, right? And then Bill Barr took it and didn't verify it and used it to go out and get a FISA warrant to spy on Biden. Do you think for a second Pisco would have been like, well, for a second, do you think that if Trump's team deletes shit and then says, well, we had a memo from 5 months ago to delete shit and we forgot about it. And so then once the subpoena came, we were like, oh yeah, now we remember. And so we deleted it. Do you think for a second that Pisco would be this charitable? He would try now because people like me have held his feet to the fire. But if that situation would have happened without the Hillary situation, he would have been, this is outrageous. Do you think for a second, if before this situation, if we would have seen a bunch of a court decision be leaked and then an assassination attempt against a left-wing justice and people outside protesting, do you think for a second Pisco would have been like, yeah, let him go? No chance. None. I know he won't admit it, but we all know the truth. And deep down, I think he probably knows. I think deep down he knows. He does. The unprecedented thing with Comey and Clinton isn't even remotely close to what we're talking about here. Comey intentionally trying to cover up Anthony Weiner's laptop to help Hillary Clinton, and then a whistleblower coming out and saying, I'm going to the Southern District of New York because the FBI, the higher-ups, I've told them repeatedly about this and they won't look into it. So Comey trying to save face by coming out and saying, oh, okay, we'll go through this laptop in 3 days. Okay, cool, she still didn't do anything wrong, is a far cry from the FBI paying a suspected Russian spy that was paid for by Hillary Clinton's camp to investigate the charge that Trump was working with Russians to get disinformation, using that disinformation from that suspected Russian spy, paying that suspected Russian spy, not verifying that information, and then using it to spy on the president. It's not even in the fucking ballpark. The statement of the non-charging, again. Yeah, he shows up, I agree. But, all right, let's raid someone. I'd be here all night. Raid Hasan, Leon. Oh, wrong. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be streaming a little early. I will be streaming with Lecture Fan. Our final before the election show. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Check that out. Well, Fabian looks like the only person on. I try not to raid the same person twice. Yeah, I saw that. Thank you to my friend Peer Review. Peer Review did a debate, if you missed it with me, on sort of climate change, renewable energy. I thought it was a really interesting debate. He actually works in the field of renewables. He's working on an algae that he's really optimistic will be a really impactful renewable. I hope he's right. I really do. But I thought it was an interesting debate. And I had it up on my channel. I don't know if it's still up. Maybe I had to make it private because of YouTube, but it should be on Rumble. But yeah, check out the Peer Reviews channel. I thought that it was a respectful debate. I thought he had a lot of good to say. I thought I did very well in the debate. But yeah, it was good. So check it out there. He put the link there. I think it's worth checking out. And he even made me a cool thumbnail, which he did. I thought it was very nice. So I would be interested to talk again. Hopefully, we'll give it some time. And then who knows, maybe you'll have more to say on, where you stand with what you're working on. And I do mean it. Like, even though, and I admitted in that debate, I'm skeptical. I've heard claims like this before from, switchgrass. I remember hearing back in the day that it was going to change the game, and ethanol, and but that doesn't mean I don't hope it's right. I mean, if it was me, I want free energy for everyone, but that's not reality. It doesn't work that way. But I'm all for, just because right now I find a lot of the climate change stuff to be damaging and sort of part of this agenda to screw us over. That doesn't mean I wouldn't support someone coming out with a cheap, great energy, so all right, we're doing the raid. If you're on YouTube, you don't get to see the raid, but that's okay. Oh yeah, Bleezers, I got you. I gotta change. I know I got those stupid ass points where you could time someone out, or I could do the rap god stuff. I never look at those points shit. So I do have to remove those. So I'm sorry about that. All right. Enjoy this raid of Fabian Liberty. I do believe they're talking a little Oz Fetterman. So maybe you'll enjoy that. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. As always, have a good one.
Set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational...
That was a bit of a diss. That was a bit of a diss. Yo, robnoerr.
Damn, 2 for 2.
Dude, 2 for 2. I'm sorry, Rob Noerr. I'm sorry I've been doing late night stuff and I haven't been able to return the favor. Next time I got a big group of people, we'll definitely bring you over. You got to check out Rob Noerr. Rob Noerr is the largest conservative in Twitch politics. I say that.
Some might argue one